to get their input and present some of the feedback we got from the town board last time to them and get their feedback. And so we have further updated our plan, and just want to point out a couple things and then bring Jennifer up here to talk about the school input. We did talk about the drop-off, pickup inserts here, and Jennifer is going to talk about the access, one-way loop there, and possibility of coning that off during their drop-off pickup hours to kind of eliminate the issues of crossing the drive lines with traffic and so forth. So she'll talk about where she is on that. We did take out the direct connection to the crosswalk that we had before based on your input. And then we did some work on trying to find an alignment for a walk connecting the North Pool parking lot with the school entrance. It may not be as direct as you may have wanted. I'm not sure the comments last time, but this is a pretty deep detention basin. It'll be pretty difficult to cross that. We'd probably need a bridge. So we're attempting to skirt the wall, go behind the wall, and I have another picture here to show that, and connect over to Indiana on that. So we'll allow that. So that's kind of the changes. This would be the striping plan going back to the pre-2012 striping. So the parking drop-off pickup lane is kind of inserted in here, and then we would put the through lane back where it was, so have the bike lanes that come across here, but have the left turn lane for the Circle Drive, and then put back the left turn lanes at Hartstrong and the North Pool. So that's the plan that we would revert back to that was there before we restriped it a couple of years ago. And then again, going back to the problem with the kids and parents walking along the wall with no room really to walk and being in harm's way, we looked at building a walk along the wall and then kind of skirting the edge of that detention pond. So we'll be going behind that. See, here's the wall, so we'll be going in the wall, and then we'll start angling over to Indiana and the school. So that's kind of the option we looked at and at your direction. So with that, I'd like to call the principal up here and talk about where the school is on all this. And she's done a survey.
Alex, can I ask you a quick question? On that walkway, that looks like it's be a crusher fine, or would that be actually?
No, it would be concrete.
It would be concrete, so it could be plowed or shoveled.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jen, Ikanoid, Bedford. First of all, I'm not an expert on traffic, and this has been a real challenge for all of us, because I know you've got people who have all sorts of opinions. And so after we met, Alex, Dave, and Donna and I met, I put out a survey to our families. It was a Google survey, 3 questions, and I have the response for you and the results, so I think there's a copy for everybody there. I ended up doing a query. We have 400 approximately families, and of those 400 families, we got 133 responses. So not quite half, but I think it's probably for those people who this impacts the most, who drive, who come from a distance, whose students don't ride the bus, who aren't regular walkers. And these were just 3 quick questions that I put out there. One was, do you like the structure that we have right now? And as you can see, 76% of them said yes. They prefer the parking on street. And then I went a little further in terms of, would you be in favor of creating that, those pull-ups for the drop-off on Indiana? 80% said yes, 53 said no. And then would you use those in lieu of either the Circle Drive or the regular parking lot? And 72 said yes. There's comments tied to the backs there. Those are from the people that filled out the survey, so their comments are very tied to the pie charts there. Many conversations that I had with parents watching our traffic, they don't want to get rid of the parking on Indiana. As much stir as that created initially, they're saying, yikes, let's not. And then I know we talked about putting cones across here if we did a bump out here. I had many parents say if we close off that Circle Drive now, we're eliminating more drop-off, creating more congestion along Indiana. What I worry about are people coming from the north, not really having any other spot but either coming in here or coming into our parking lot. So if we take up this loop, then they don't have as many options. I'm struggling with this, and I understand where you guys are. I really and truly do. I want what's best for the community. I want what is going to impact us in a positive way. I also need to share with you, some of the comments were around the growth. Well, the growth that's going to happen in the town center isn't going to impact Superior Elementary. And so I don't think a lot of our families realize that we are on a downhill trend in terms of our numbers. So for next year, we're projecting about 500 students, which is down from previous years where we were well over 600 students. So we're looking at a decrease here. It would be nice to get back to the school's original design, which was a 3-round school. So again, we could be looking at a couple more years of decline in our enrollment, just because the neighborhood hasn't turned over. Not in a bad way. Families love the area. They want to stay there. Their kids are now in middle school and high school and moving on into college. They're not putting younger kiddos into the elementary school. So I guess I'm going to just put it out there and say, from the feedback that I've gotten, if I had my way, I would not put that bump out there. I'm not sure I know how to use this. It's a little...
Don't point it at anybody.
Oh, okay, thank you. I would almost be inclined to say not put that there. Leave the Circle Drive as it is, put a bump out here.
That's something we talked about.
And be done with it.
Would you get rid of the parking along
And turn
Indiana?
lanes back in there, because that's been a big issue. The turn lanes, eliminating those has created that source of backup. And I'm thinking in terms of how do we help people coming from this north side over here. I know this is still a huge problem for families, and I don't know what the solution there.
Where is the street parking now?
Right now, we've got street parking right here, and we've got street parking along here.
So when you suggest not doing it on the left-hand side, not doing the bump outs, are you suggesting keeping the street parking as it is now or losing it?
I would keep it as it is now and continue to work with our families, because I know a big issue is having kids walking through here. I have positioned myself out here in the mornings so that I can catch a lot of those kiddos coming and wanting to go this way. And it is that ongoing, continuous training of the families to say, no, that's not an option to go this way. You have to come down the sidewalk and then this way, or I cross them here and they come this way. A lot of the families do naturally do that if they're on time. If they're late, that's when we see them doing that run. It's if they're on time, they know they have to go down, around here, and around to the back to line up, because all of our kiddos line up in the back of the building. We don't let them in through the front door, which would be coming this way, unless it's after the bell has already rang for the day. So, I don't know if that helps. Honestly, this is your expert. I know BBSD said if there were any sprinkler lines that we needed to move, that would be something that we could do. Certainly beyond that, we don't have the funds available this year.
Just one comment, I guess. If we eliminate this bump out, I think we'd probably eliminate parking here.
Oh, yeah, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to restripe it, so, yeah, so we would need to keep it if we're going to do parking.
This parking would go right here.
Which it's not very many parking spaces there. I see that being used a lot for the parking, to lock the kids around back. And a lot of this over here is that quick pull in, get the kid out, and then they pull back into the traffic.
And I guess that was my question. When you're talking about parking, do you mean people dropping kids off, or do you mean people parking for the day?
Literally
Parking for
parking.
a lot of time?
They park and get out of their cars. They park here, get out of their cars, walk along here, and come down here.
What if you just allow drop off and no parking there?
Right.
Would you clarify what you meant in questions 2 and 3?
So are you in favor of creating more on-street drop-off and pickup? That would be these bump outs here. Would people be in favor of creating that? And I was just trying to explain to them that it would be on the school side, not on the west side. Because we did have comments about, well, what about us coming from the north? What are you going to do for us? I don't want to have to pull into that parking lot because it's a mess.
What did you mean by the second half with only parking after school?
They would not be allowed to park there during the school day. So from 7:45 to the end of the school day, 3 o'clock, they would not be allowed to park in these bump out areas. Now, if we had after-school
that our
events
intent?
or during the weekends, if there were pool events, then you could park there during those events.
Is that what we intended, not to have parking there during the day?
Well, right now, we haven't signed it, so it could be for drop-off or for parking, so it's used now, like parking anytime.
But when you presented to us last meeting, I drew the conclusion that you could park there, was I correct?
And that was our conclusion. I think we had a long discussion with Don Orr and the principal about that, and whether it would just be for drop-off pickup, and then you get into signing. I mean, my personal opinion, just leave it, put the inset and see how it works. If we have a problem, then go back and sign it, because then put signs up, and then we got to go and do enforcement and bag them or whatever. So I'd rather just start with leaving it as parking or drop, and, no rules at this point. See how it operates, and if we need signing, come back and do signing.
Seems like the only time you don't want parking there is when people are dropping kids off and they're only allowed to drop off. So that, I don't understand that designation of these hours either.
The only concern that brought up was, unfortunately, we have 15-minute parking there also, and not everybody follows that 15-minute parking. And so it would be that parent who parks there at 1:30, school gets out at 2 on Thursday, and they don't move their car, and now all of a sudden, we've got one car stuck in the middle, not moving, and everybody's trying to get in and out. So it's that element of, who's going to police it? That would be us. I don't always have the manpower to be out there to try to get a car to move because they forgot, oh yeah, today's 2 o'clock, and I forgot, sorry. And now they've created a huge backup for everybody trying to get in and out.
And then number 3, what did you...
And number 3 was, if we were to put cones across here and even eliminate even parking lot drop-off and pickup, if they just use that on-street drop-off, would they use that in lieu of, if they're using the parking lot right now, or if they're using the circle, would they use the on-street drop-off and pickup instead of the circle and the parking lot?
So, let's see, a couple of questions if I could. So, would there be, it seems like when I've watched this, that sometimes parents, despite the signage, decide that they really have to turn left no matter what, because who knows why. Would there be a benefit of actually making a right turn out only from the circle loop, so you actually had a physical barrier from turning left?
And that was brought up, I know when Alex and Dave did their study, some of the feedback even has come that if you did the right turn out of the circle and a left turn out only of the parking lot to get traffic to go opposite directions.
Yeah, I don't know about the problem. Trying to prevent the backup in the parking lot, I think that everybody would have to turn right. I think it'd be beneficial because it seems like, there's just one one or two parents who just decide that they have to turn left, and that backs up the circle drop-off for everybody involved, so just a thought. And would there be any benefit farther south to have a bump out past the driveway into the main parking lot, past where the buses are?
I think you're awful close to that stop sign.
I know.
Yeah. I don't,
Do you have a bigger picture of that?
I think I do.
So where the parking lot is, the main parking lot, yeah, right there.
You talking about down here?
Would there be any
I
benefit
think
of
we
that?
looked at that when we built this parking lot. I think they're,
No, you're talking about bump out. He's just
Bump
talking
out,
about on the
just a bump
street.
out, yeah.
On the street, he's talking about bump out,
right. You mean a bump out or an entrance to the parking lot?
Bump out.
not an entrance.
Just drop off there.
We looked at this here, yeah, we could get some room where there's, yeah, we can get more. We got trees that may be sacrificed.
That would also help the Saturday morning basketball people, right, and the soccer people where they're
There.
lined up on Indiana, they're parked.
There's,
So what were the arguments against letting kids drop off on the other side of the street and helping people coming from that other direction?
On the west side of Indiana?
And then crossing on the bump?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is kids not using the crosswalk and just crossing the street where they get dropped off. I don't know.
I haven't seen any kids cross anywhere but the bump, for the most part. So, as long as it's pretty close to the bump, you know. Of course, then visibility might suck, I don't know, I'm just asking why it was deleted as an option. It would stop people from needing to turn left.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, any recommendations about how to proceed? I have my own thoughts, but. Lisa?
Sure. I don't see a need for parking along there. I think there's a need for drop-offs, but I don't see any reason to have people park along that street. There's parking, and it just makes it less visible, and then it makes it too ambiguous about when and how you use that location. If it's only drop-off and you're not allowed to get out of your car, too bad. You know, I think, that, like at the airport, I think that would be fine for me.
and I would say the time that it is used is in the morning and after school.
And that's it.
And really, when you do during the day, anywhere from 9 to 1:30, you don't see a lot of cars actually parked along the street.
Yeah, so if it was clear there was never parking, then it would hopefully never be parking. I'd love to see an exploration of what the widths are, if you consider drop-offs on the other side of the street. And I definitely think you need a left turn lane, and a dedicated left turn lane with arrows starting pretty far back so people know to get out of that lane early. So pretty much as you come around the corner, there start to be arrows, and where one shows going straight and one shows turning left. That's my recommendation.
I agree on the left turn lanes. Have a left turn lane at the parking lot, a left turn lane into the circle, and a left turn lane down at, right down there. But also, one of the original reasons we allowed parking on the street was for overflow on those days that they had events. So not just after school, it was important that if there were school events there, that we allowed parents to park on the street because there wasn't enough parking in the parking lot. So I know that BVSD doesn't think it's necessary to expand on the parking lot. I still would like to see if there was an opportunity to increase that parking lot by maybe a dozen, up to 2 dozen stalls, that would be great. And if the school could have teachers park in that lot, it would open up more spots in the main lot for parents to park on those big overflow days. So I would encourage us to have the availability to park on Indiana at some point. I agree that drop-off during the morning and pick up in the afternoon only is good, but on those days where we really need the overflow parking on the street, I think it's beneficial.
So, I can weigh in. So, I strongly believe that anything that's dependent upon a human being actually being there to police something is fraught with problems and would not construct anything that would
require that to happen. Somebody's out sick, who knows what happens. So I think that's at least from my perspective, a non-starter. So it needs to be a built physical environment that prevents the direction. So that being said, I think that I would continue to have the circle lot there, but I would eliminate the parking, that, the 5 cars or whatever it is there in front of that circle drop-off. I think it's just, I think we've been lucky, but, to have a kindergartner basically run through traffic, that would be a bad thing, so.
Andrew, where are you pointing?
Yep, there. But the other group is fine.
Yeah, and I would, perhaps as an option to the contract that we look at, is whether or not there'd be additional parking that we could construct south on Indiana. I think that would be.
South of the lot here.
Yeah, just as an option to see how expensive that would be and how many cars. I think there's actually a lot of room for additional cars there.
Do you want us to, as Trustee Skumatz suggested, do you want us to look at the opposite side of the street for bump outs?
I don't think so. I mean, it would be hard to restripe all of that, or if not, then you'd be taking out a lot of grass, I think, on that side, so I don't think so.
We spoke about that last meeting, didn't we consider that it would increase the amount of kids going on the crosswalk, which could...
I think it's a bit of a concern, so I think that would potentially cause more problems than it would solve. So it does seem like there's a lot of traffic that's coming from the south up north. I think those parents would have the access to that additional parking to the south on Indiana if we made bump outs there.
Okay.
And I would explore whether or not it's okay with the school district to just basically make a right out only from the circle lot.
All the time, or just
All the
at
time.
peak hours?
No, all the time. Just, so that we have a pork chop or something there that would prevent that from occurring.
So, first of all, I would get rid of the parking. I don't see anything wrong here, or here, or here, because there's a sidewalk here and they would just go through here.
That's the bus drop-off.
Okay, all right, eliminate that then. I really think that what would work best here is some sort of entrance, another entrance into this parking lot, so that you can flow it in such a way that you come in and you go out, or however it is. You come in and you go out. It can't be the same entrance exit for the in and out. I think if it was a separate one, it would help tremendously. And move traffic through a little bit better. I'm just really hesitant with the cars here. Just typically when cars are parked there, I think it just adds another element of danger for the kids.
Hey, Deb, before you go off on that one thought, I like the idea of having another entrance into that south parking lot, but at the same time, I don't think you can have the traffic flow through that and exit at the one parking lot, because it's really hard to get out of there now if you're in that south parking lot.
The other consideration right now, that you've got a lot of people walking, but right now they don't have to be walking over here. They don't have to cross.
I totally agree. We're trying to do something that's pedestrian friendly. I mean, it's great that the cars are coming by, fantastic, but we want to do things that are pedestrian friendly, and adding additional driveway through there, I think, would be a problem, because that clearly would never be policed.
But you're basically creating your traffic here.
How do people come in from the
One way or
south?
another, you're creating the same problem.
I don't think so.
Most of them are coming from the south because our buses pick up from the north. Our buses only pick up across Rock Creek on the north side, so there is no transportation from BVSC from the south
So
side.
tell me, I'll go after Deb's finished there.
I was just going to say that part of the issue here is that they're lined up for a very long time on both sides. And the longer they're lined up there, the more anxious, the more possibility of a kid getting hurt. And what I'm trying to say here is that if you can get traffic to move through quicker to drop off in some way, I don't know how you create it, but it's another entrance in and you don't come out the same way, it would drastically eliminate how many cars are just queued up. That's my thoughts.
So, yeah, draw for me, my kids are all out of college, so it's been a long time here. So what are the typical patterns coming from the south? How do people drop, if they're driving?
So if they come from the south, I think I can do this. They can turn into the main parking lot. They can either go through the loop there and drop off on the north side of there.
And then they have to take a left?
Right,
No,
they
take a
have to go
right.
right. They have to go right.
Some parents will go and park in the parking lot to the south, that one there. And there are some, and then walk their kid, or the kids walk down the sidewalk to the front of the school. Or there's sometimes some space in the main parking lot in front of the school.
And some parents will actually drop off on El Dorado and have the kids walk up the
And
sidewalk.
there's a sidewalk there that is, yep, so that, but in terms of the drop, that's the main area. And then kindergartners and other kids like that, they'll go through this circle out there, and then hopefully turn right. So I think that's the main traffic pattern.
So if we do the top bank of inset parking there,
Farthest north.
yeah, the farthest north, do we ever have problems with kids coming out the left-hand side of the car, or are they well-trained to always,
No, they come out the left-hand side, unfortunately.
so if there are bikes going up that bike lane,
Or cars.
or other cars or whatnot, we've got danger there, right? And so if we retain that northern bank, you know where I'm talking about, the northern bank, is the plan to continue to have the loop access, or would you, the circle access, or were you going to cone that off and only have drop-off with that inset curve?
If we only had drop-off with this inset and this, I think we would still have the same problem.
Okay, so you're planning to keep using the circle in that scenario?
From the feedback that I got, it just allows more options for parents to come in, and especially coming from the north. It allows them to make that left-hand turn.
And so for, last question, for people coming from the south, they're used to the right turn only at the southern parking lot.
Yes.
What do they do if they're dropping their kindergartner off on the loop? Right now, they can hold traffic up and wait for a left?
Yes, because there's
Okay.
no signage there. So
Okay.
if somebody is not there directing traffic, then they can hold it up, yeah.
And one other small sign that would be kind of helpful, I think. People who are turning right always thought they could just sneak in there, and if there would be a sign like at the ski lift saying alternate or something, that might be useful. I don't know. I'm just saying that I watched a lot of people slip to the right while the guys have been waiting and waiting to turn left, and it just didn't seem fair.
We also discussed at the last meeting, making that south parking lot larger, but also having an entrance and an exit there. Do we think that that would be too much traffic for those houses that are near there on El Dorado? Or is that something that we think could actually work? As long as it wasn't on...
Next to Mrs. Monco's house.
Yeah, I don't think,
Oh.
I look at that, I don't think
It's
there's
swampy.
anywhere near enough room for that.
It's pretty swampy.
Well, we kind of discarded that based on, I think, the feedback we got from the board at our last meeting, and also in discussing this with the school staff. And frankly, Don Orr felt that this situation is better than a lot of schools they have around the district, and that there's plenty of parking, there's a lot of trails. I mean, this school is set up, he has some other schools around that are much worse than this. And he says the board is, their district is just not interested in providing additional parking at schools. Is that fair? So, I mean, he was not in favor of any additional parking in this lot. I don't think he was just, he wouldn't mind an access here.
No, he said that was a,
That would probably be a positive thing, but he felt it was more a neighborhood issue. We had neighbors.
Good issue.
yeah. I think he said originally when the school was built that was a conversation that had been had about an access.
I don't know, it's in my neighborhood, and I don't, all I know is that it's very swampy in that spot. It's like a whole dip and marsh, and a fox family, that lives in that tree patch as well. So I don't care, I mean, people stop there anyway. I'm not sure it would be significantly different if they went in or not, but I'm just...
I think it would really help the circulation, because then you wouldn't have to worry about turning left here, and come in here, and you can get out a different...
But where are they going to get out?
Well, they would have to go down to El Dorado Drive if they want to go south.
But if you want to make good traffic, there's no way you could have a double wide road in there. It's just not, there's not space for two lanes of road. There could be an inset, but you'd have to come out some other way.
Plus, I mean, from my perspective, I think that's something, if we wanted to do something like that, that would be something that we would consider in a future year maybe, but for this project, I think we're concentrating on Indiana.
I think so, yeah. For the benefit that would be achieved from that, with the maintenance that would then be associated with that, I just would have a hard time really supporting doing that.
I think a single road could possibly fit, but there's no way a double would fit, so you'd have to find an exit.
So, like you say, that we could talk about that in the future if people are
We
really
did
excited.
ask Donald about additional parking here, and he felt that it wasn't needed during the regular school events. It's really more the big school.
And I always hate to plan parking for the single big day. I'm not a big fan of that.
No, we got
People
the-
can
we
park
got the
along
Target
streets and everything.
phenomenon.
Precisely. I'm not planning for the soccer day, yeah.
Just to round out my 2 cents are that I do not want to, I don't like the idea of parking on Indiana during school hours at all. So the bump outs we use for drop-off, that's great. And then I don't think there's room for, I would not do to the houses on El Dorado, I would not add a driveway there. I couldn't see doing that to people. And otherwise, I think you're on track, with your proposal.
So let's just I want to have clarity here. So
Your proposal.
let's do
No parking on Indiana during.
let's redo Indiana because it looks terrible.
Right, so we take
No,
this out.
that's a
That's
given.
a given.
This doesn't
Let's
tell
do
me what
this-
you're doing. so
let's do
that's-
the stripe.
That
You
was
wanna-
not helpful, yeah.
So, we're reconstructing the road, so just, want to just review the striping plan, but I think the striping plan as presented, it makes sense.
So we would go back to this striping plan that was here pre-2012, which is a through lane, a bike lane, a center turn lane, another through lane, and a bike lane. So you have 2 bike lanes, 2 through lanes, and then a center turn lane into the parking lot, a turn lane into the Circle Drive, and then turn lanes into Heartstrong and into the pool. That's the striping plan we had 2 years ago. So adding turn lanes back in here and back in the circle.
So I think we're good with those 2 elements. And then I think that for the El Dorado, we'll look at that in the future, so I think we'll take that off the table. Then the issues are what to do with the parking by the circle drop-off. My suggestion is to eliminate that.
So here,
Yeah.
this parking inset,
Yeah.
it
Get rid of
sounds
that.
like,
Mayor, for clarity, Ken, as you're throwing these out, can we maybe just get,
Head nods.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to get. I just want to make sure that if people have heartburn about any of these, make sure you let me know. So,
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Joe said, and I think there was one other trustee, that he didn't want parking on Indiana during school hours. What about parking on Indiana during school hours when there is a special event? Are you fine with that?
Well, I guess if you're bagging signs or something, but I think your
It's unnecessary.
Your general rule should be no parking on Indiana during school hours,
Ever.
and that
Drop-off only.
drop-off only, and there's a lot of schools that have that kind of rule, and then if you're gonna have special, then you bag it, whatever.
So maybe, here's just to have clarity about that one, so would it be okay, I think Alex said that maybe we should just try it out and see what happens and then sign it depending upon what happens? Does that sound okay?
I would say start out with your best hunch of where you want to end up. So if you're very strong, you don't want to change behavior.
So my only issue about bagging signs is then that becomes, somebody actually has to get tasked to do that, and if you forget to do it, and it's not, the sign's still up, or we're going to ticket people, I don't know.
But we're talking about those few days when there's special event during school hours that requires additional parking. It's not,
There's loads of parking up and down El Dorado.
Yeah, but we
Both
ran into
really
this
wide
problem
streets.
when we first came up with the parking on Indiana, and that was a great solution, that it worked. And
It worked
if
in
we're
one
going to say no more
perspective.
parking there, then we're back to where we were 2 years ago.
So can we separate the issue? First, I like the mayor's approach here. Do we want to have parking during school hours other than the special event during school hours? And I'm sensing people are saying no. Is that correct?
I'm fine with that, too, as long as we have that parking available at some point, because there was more than just a few events during the year. We did a grid, and it was at least a dozen,
Right.
if not more.
So where you disagree is the special event during school hours. And then we have the special event in non-school hours. So those are two separate variables.
Yes, just so I make sure I understand you. No parking on Indiana except during special school hours during the school day.
Special events during school.
Special events, I mean, yeah.
And so just so we know who would then be responsible for indicating what the special event days are and who would then be tasked to, would we tell the sheriff to do that?
No, typically it's our public works staff that has to go out and do this.
And that public works staff to bag the signs.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not the best solution, but Ms. Bedford, if you have students that I've seen in the past where the students will place signs on a car saying that they can't park there or they're staying there too long. Was that something that could be an option along Indiana?
For bagging the sign?
Not bagging them, but I'm saying putting just a little paper sign on the car saying, hey, you're not supposed to park here during this hour,
Oh,
during the school hours. So we're not asking the sheriff to police it, we're taking it upon ourselves at the school to do it.
I worry about doing
I would
anything
say
that's
I
on the
would-
public
yeah.
right of way. I mean, on the school parking lot, if you want to put something, I guess I'm okay with that, but on a public street, I'd have concerns
Yeah.
about kids doing that.
I thought the question was who would bag the sign during the special event during school hours?
Yes, that's one.
And-
That's our public works staff.
And we got away from that because it was too much, because there was too many days that they had to go out and bag the signs. That's why we just opened it up and said, you can park here, right? That was the rules, you can park there anytime, correct?
Currently, yes.
Yeah. Because it's too much of a chore to bag the signs during every event.
And that's nothing that we could, that you would agree to assign a specific person like the assistant principal or something to do that on special events?
no,
during
I don't
school
have an
hours?
assistant principal. Next year I will not have one, and I actually myself walked out there, and even with my height, I could not reach the sign.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
And
would
it-
have to have, and there's so many signs, I don't have the staff
Okay.
nor the time to bag the signs.
Well, we don't want to take you out of the school to do traffic
Right.
control, so we'd rather you be a principal.
Thank you.
Where I think Chris has a very valid concern. Human nature is when you're struggling to find parking during a special event, your child's going to be on stage in 2 minutes, you're going to park there, because it looks like you can park there. So I fear during the special event, during school hours, we're going to have parkers there whether or not we want them.
And they did, and that's why this came about, because then the fire department came in and we had cars parked in the fire lane, we had cars parked by the fire hydrants. It became an unsafe parking area because they were blocking all of the emergency vehicles from getting in.
So let's try to have direction about the signage here. So where we allow parking, don't allow parking, parking except for, no parking except for special event days. Once again, my direction would be to just see what happens and go from there, but
Meaning start out with people being able to park.
no signage about what the restrictions are. Just, my guess is that people are going to be there temporarily, mostly drop off, and then they'll self-police, honestly.
That is the path of least resistance right now, and I think that could work because I think it's working now. I think that what's going on there works, and it's worked better than it has, except for not having the left turn lanes. It's been working pretty well for the last 2 years, so I like that.
And I'm strongly against allowing people to get out of their cars and park there during the drop-off times. To me, that's a huge mistake. So, I'd rather not see parking there at all, because I think it gets people used to parking and thinking that parking is okay. So, the only option I can see would be to say, have a sign that says there, stopping only, no parking, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. or something like that, and 3 till whatever time you guys get out. And I would just put it that way, and then basically make it so there's no parking during that time, only stopping and dropping off, and then whatever the rest of the time. I'm not in favor of it, but it's
So
a
I don't
better
think that we're
option.
going to solve this one, but we don't have to solve this tonight, because I think we're just talking about contracting. We can talk about what the signage looks like a little bit later on.
Andrew, could I add one more thing? That with these being pullouts, it's going to increase the safety from what it is now. It's going to be
I believe so.
much more safe.
I believe so.
So we've had a pretty good track record over the last 2 years. It's worked really well. Now we're going to make it even safer. So I'm all for putting both those pullouts there and then letting it go.
So, well, let's go back, because I think, is there a general head nod about not having the parking,
Not-
south parking in the middle?
Not in the middle of the loop.
Yeah.
Not adjacent to the loop.
Well,
I would agree on that.
Not for the loop.
And I think creating the pullout just above this circle pullout is, I think that's what we should do, but I think we should have zero signage, just nothing.
Okay. So
And
let's
then
have,
figure out what the patterns are.
Well, we
Of
can
what
do some more
Alice-
research on signs to come back at a later date.
Yeah.
What we need tonight is what we're going to design. And we can talk about the signing and do some research and see if any other schools have this problem, how they solve it.
just one last
Basically, just
thought.
creating what you need to create, and then coming back later to figure out how you're
Right,
going to
and
use it.
yeah, before we even build it, we'll have the signing, what we're going to do with the signs.
Just one thought on the no signage. If you have no signage, you're inviting people to park there. You're screwing up the drop-off and pickup right off the bat. If somebody parks there, it doesn't work. At least have a sign that says drop-off and pickup only between
Yeah, I like that idea.
7
Yeah,
and
maybe
9.
we can add special events, except there's something like that.
Well, no,
Just address the drop-off time.
Just say
That's it.
drop-off and pick up.
Just say nothing about the rest of the time.
Only between these hours and these hours, so that nobody parks there when you want it flowing.
so can we, is it okay if we just address this when it comes back?
Yep, and I would say just, my vote is to have both pullouts put into place.
Okay. So,
That's a contract issue he needs to figure out.
right, so I think that there's general, just so I understand, I think there's general consensus, not unanimity, about not having the bump out by the drop-off by the circle loop.
Can I ask the
believe it.
principal to clarify again that, I guess nothing here addressed that, but I thought I heard you say on that, by the circle, somehow you were able to get people to commit to a preference not to have that pull out at the circle. Is that, did I interpret you correctly?
No.
Okay, so what did your staff or whoever you collected opinion from say about the drop-off at the circle, the recessed part at the circle?
Don Orr was in favor of the recessed drop-off in both spots here, but then said because of the danger of kids walking this way, coning this off, although that concerns me because it eliminates one of my drop-off spots. And then I'm right back to where I was before.
Yeah.
It's a
And
no-brainer.
not having enough to alleviate the backup
And then you
down
have
Indiana.
somebody having to go out and Kona and take them back. That just does not seem like a,
So how do you feel about that drop-off at the recessed Indiana drop-off at the circle?
I feel like we're going to have some parents who are disappointed to lose that parking along there, because it is used in the morning. And most of the parents who use that do specifically get out, walk their kids back around, and wait with their children in the back for the bell to ring. So they're all being escorted by adults that are using that section right there, is what I see. Or the kids are coming down, they'll park, and the kids will walk down this way because they're in modulars over here. They're older kids, so they go over that way. If we left this bump out here, I worry about cars trying to get out. I worry about this. That section right there. I would worry about that.
Do you not worry about cars making that right? Let's say we mandate a right turn only onto Indiana from the circle, but we've got the other bump out, and kids getting out the left-hand side of the car as those cars are making that right turn. It seems like we have built-in conflict there.
Which they're doing right now, but I would agree with Mr. Hanson that pulling that back, you're alleviating some of that immediate turning right into the back of them.
And is there no ability to say absolutely no left-hand rear seat departures? That's what we're talking about, the kids coming out of the rear seat. You can't mandate, or you can't try to motivate or create a user behavior.
We ask parents all the
just ignore
time
it?
to,
Okay.
unload at curbside. I'm not sure many of them understand what that means, and that's, no matter where they go in the city, if they park on the street, that's how they're choosing to unload their children. So, yeah. And what we see is cars, when I do make them go right, they come here, they go right, they go down here, they turn here and flip around and come back this way.
That's still safer than you turning in the middle of the rest of it.
So
It's fine.
they go
So,
every which way.
okay, don't get a ticket.
so just to have clarity though, because we need to move on, so I think that I have,
No
Can we-
parking by the loop.
that would be my direction.
No bump out.
I would agree.
Okay, so I think that,
Only one bump out.
Yep.
so, that if you could explore basically making a right turn out only from the
That
loop.
arrow.
See what that will, well, I think actually concrete,
Yeah,
change the direction of what that would look like.
Circle drive?
Yeah.
Good luck.
How many spots would then be available in the front bump out? Spots?
The north one, how many parking spots?
How many here? 8.
8.
Total.
So, but just explore it. I'm not saying do it, but if you could just explore that as an option.
And what about parking south of the drive?
So that was my last one, is if you could explore that as also an option, that would be great too. For the kids that are, older kids that are going to the portables or whatever, they could park there and walk down the sidewalk to the portables.
Okay, so eliminate this, we'll go down here.
Alex, you gotta go to the mic, please.
Back to, see what we can add back down here, take this out, and design that, and see what we can do, making that right out only.
Okay, does that sound fair to
The
the board?
walk, do you want us to include the walk, or is
Yeah.
that a later date?
Where's the walk
The
gonna go?
parking, from the parking, north
Oh,
parking.
my God. No, on the,
This one?
I can only see it the other way.
What was the cost of that, Alex?
Cost for that option? What was the cost for that option?
Okay.
No,
How much- how much
that's
was
a
it?
question.
It's 30 to 40,000.
For the sidewalk?
Yeah, I thought it was like 80.
Yeah,
For the sidewalk
yeah,
only?
yes, yeah.
But leave it as an option,
How about
if
crusher
the
fines?
We have
if the
retaining walls, and we have landscaping and the sidewalk, so
it needs to be plowed, so I wouldn't make it a crusher fine.
it'll be concrete.
So this could be an option in the contract,
We can
right?
include that as an option.
Yes.
That's
Why
our
is it
goal.
an arc going to the street?
Because of the,
Drop off.
Topography.
This
There's
is,
that marsh right
There's a big
there.
drop off there.
this is a big hole.
Okay.
Either that or a bridge.
bridge.
Yeah.
And most kids
Maybe a
will look at that and go,
suspension.
I gotta go that way to go back this way?
Well, what they're doing right now is walking down the street or climbing across the,
A lot. I think it's a waste of money. You have several students who do come into that parking lot. I get that. And,
what they do is just walk down the street until they get to the
yes,
sidewalk
they do.
while the
Yep,
cars are turning in.
yes.
So, Andrew, did you say further towards
Yes,
El
they
Dorado,
are.
could have a bump out there, or look at possibly having a bump out there?
Yeah, farther south, because I
Yeah.
think you could
Okay.
add more,
Yeah.
you could basically, I think you'd have more parking in this.
So instead of having a bump out at the circle, have
Yeah.
another one down?
Yeah.
Got it, okay, that's good.
I'm fine with that.
I do say that sidewalk is going to be created for nothing. I mean, people will not use it.
I don't think so, because
They'll take that instead of walking.
instead of walking down the street or kids that are walking down the wall.
Yeah, I think they will use it.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Well, let's keep it as an option. Okay. So I think that do we have clarity? Staff feels confident about how to proceed here? Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all the...
Can I just tell you, thank you very much. I do appreciate, I really and truly do. I know this has been a very difficult decision, but I really appreciate the willingness to take the time to look at this and help the traffic flow. So thank you very much.
Well, we're here for the kids and trying to do what's right for the community, so thank you very
I
much.
appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We need to move on. So what I'm going to say is that we have another discussion about the municipal code regulations. We'll just make sure that that's discussed in the regular meeting. So, because we won't have, 4 minutes will not cover that topic. So I'm just going to add that as a topic in the regular meeting. If that's okay.
Can I make one follow-up request here? We have spring coming upon us where the kids are starting to walk again. Can we do some surveying, I mean, of patterns regarding this swimming pool parking lot and how many kids use the street to get over to the Indiana sidewalk? Because if it's a handful, I'm not as persuaded as if it's a lot. I'll try to get out there actually during the spring and watch it myself,
I
but...
can talk with Clint, because I know he's out there a lot, maybe he can give us some counts.
Clint made his own sign.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to take a 3-minute break.
Mayor?
And then, when you were out, I said, topic number 2, we were going to add to the regular meeting.
The resident who was concerned and had to leave.
Okay.
So we could do it in the regular meeting, or I could I talked to her about scheduling it with the traffic safety committee.
Can we have I'm going to put it in there for at least a 10-minute
Okay.
conversation, if
Okay.
that's okay. Or I'll just bring it up, however. But that's what I was thinking. So,
All right.
3 minutes, we'll break, and then we'll be back. Thanks, Alex.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Town of Superior Board of Trustees and the Liquor Licensing Authority and the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 Board of Directors meeting for March 24th, 2014. And Phyllis, if you'd call the roll.
Mayor Andrew Muffle.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Trustees Ida Gregoris, Chris Hansen.
Here.
Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Lisa Skumas.
Here.
Deborah Williams.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Bagley.
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Herman here.
Very good. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Trustee Skumas.
I'd like to just suggest that we move item 8 into the consent agenda.
Okay. Motion by Trustee Skumas, second by Trustee Sorelli. Discussion? All in favor of
What
that?
is item 8? The roadway
The roadway.
sign criteria and standards.
Actually, there's one other one. Do you have questions about it?
I would not like to do that.
Okay.
Okay, vote on it.
Then she can pull it from the consent agenda.
Yeah,
I see.
so, that's fine. So,
Wait, back up.
here, given our conversation that we had with the Planning Commission, and after looking at this, if you had a lot of questions about this to do something different, then we should keep it there. I think most of us were comfortable that the Planning Commission did their work and
I am
ready to
not
move
taking
on.
issue with the Planning Commission's work, however, there are a couple of things I'd like to bring up.
Okay. So, then the only other suggestion I have is to add a brief conversation about what was in the work session, which is a discussion of the municipal code regulations regarding trailers, recreational vehicles, and boats on the streets. I don't think it will be lengthy, but just to make sure that we have people's thoughts about that and
I have
come
one
back.
other change, and that was to pull the, is it the only item in the consent agenda? No, the approval of the liquor license. I'd like to pull that,
Okay.
just because I'm not sure how to handle that under consent agenda, because I thought that
Yeah.
there were
Because
options
we're allowed to
on
be consent agenda, I think.
Okay. So, let's see, do you want to rephrase, I guess we can vote on, well, this is, so is there a motion to approve the agenda with removal of what was 7B and to add a brief conversation about the regulation of vehicles on the street? And that would follow the, that would follow the consent agenda as well.
Yes. Sure.
Okay, so some.
So number 8 is not included in the consent agenda?
It's not.
Okay.
Yes, because, okay, well,
Some of us want to discuss it.
okay.
one of you.
One of us wants to discuss this. Okay, so there's a motion, a motion by Trustee Sorelli, second by Trustee Skumatz. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. That brings us to reports, questions, and issues. Trustee Hansen?
Yep, I don't have anything to report, but I do want to make a plea to the community, anybody that's watching, and that is the animals that are going on Williams Field. There's a lot of, I think a lot of residents that are taking their animals, especially dogs, on Williams Field, and the dogs are relieving themselves on the field. And it's really unpleasant for kids that go out there and play and have to see that out there. I also want to note that it's probably a huge sanitary issue going to the bathroom on that field, and it doesn't drain. It's not like a natural surface field. So that creates big problems when you've got toddlers that are out there playing on AstroTurf field and rolling around. Other sports organizations that go out there and play on the field. I would just ask that everybody be mindful that pets are not allowed on that field, and please abide by that.
I support that.
Trustee Sorelli?
The thing I have to report is attended a historical commission meeting last Friday, the 21st. The highlight of which was, as you remember, we presented an honorary membership to Denzel Ackland, who's leaving for Oklahoma. He came to the meeting, was the last regular meeting that he'll be coming to because they're moving very soon. And we had a great, kind of a recognition luncheon for him at the end of the meeting. It was very nice. And thank the town for supporting the Historical Commission in that effort, and also for the proclamation in the last town meeting. A little highlight on the spring programs coming up. It'll be here in Town Hall and be advertised more. It's not until April 24th, but it's, I don't know if I have the name right, Steve Lee is a retired teacher who's a Colorado Chautauqua reenactor, and he's dressing in period costume and portraying Otto Mears, who in the late 19th century was one of the key railroad developers in the San Juans and in Colorado, and he had a lot to do with the development of the $1 Million Highway in Ouray, and so he'll dress the part. And Otto Mears was, I believe, a Russian immigrant, so he'll have Russian accent, and if you ask him questions, he'll answer within the context of the time and not, won't suggest you go to the Wi-Fi and get your answers. And so it should be a nice program. And again, there'll be more advertisements on that. And
Are we coordinating with other historical, like Louisville or whatever, regarding that?
regarding that program, I don't believe so. I couldn't answer that for sure. And with Denzel leaving, that'll create 2 vacancies on the commission. So, that's all.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Skumatz.
Not much. I didn't see the RCAC meeting minutes in here, but I attended one, but that would have been a while back. And I did want to know how the wildlife walk went Saturday. I
Okay.
wanted to go, but I was out of town.
I'll have to follow up.
All right?
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, I don't think I have anything else to add. Trustee Williams?
Yeah, I attended a Dr. Cog meeting, and we were looking at the Transportation Improvement Project's rating system. And one of the, how it worked before was Dr. Cog would receive federal funds, and they'd put out a call for all these projects for all the different municipalities in the area. And then from there, they'd rate them, and then they'd put it in Phase 1. And Phase 1, they'd dole out a certain amount of money. And if there was any other funds available that became available, they would go into Phase 2 with all the projects that were not picked, and then reselect for Phase 2. So now what they're looking at is instead still receiving the federal funds, bringing a call for projects for the TIP, but this time they would create 2 different pots. One that is a regional projects pot and one that is a locally selected projects pot. And they would, well, they're still going to have to look at how they're going to rate them. They haven't figured out the rating system at this point. They're going to revamp that. But let me give you an idea of what would be a regional project and what would be a local project. So the regional projects, they're calling it like car wars. Basically, it is the regional roads, the highways, and it would be based on traffic volume, ridership, whether it's bus or light rail, connectivity to other or larger roads, such as state roads. So they're looking at, a bigger rather than smaller project for the regional. Then when it comes to local projects, this would be by population and employment and vehicle miles traveled. And then the types of projects, so there'd be different types of projects, whether there be multimodal or just expansion of a road. And then they'd have some sort of process for selecting these projects within each municipality. So one of the reasons why they're looking at this is it becomes sort of a political hot potato to sit there and bargain for your own town to try to get, US 36 in McCaslin. Maybe it's the roadway, maybe it's the bikeway. I mean, there's some sort of project that you're trying to advocate for, and you don't get the points, or you just don't have the political clout, or you just don't have enough people advocating for you, because sometimes you need more than just your town. So they want to look at how they can support each municipality as well as the region, because supporting a municipality does help the region, but, this is just another way of looking at it. So I don't know how it'll work out, whether this will actually be implemented or not, but this is what they're looking at. So I think it gives us an opportunity to at least put forward, maybe if we do Campus Drive, maybe if we do the underpass, we might be able to get some sort of money for a bikeway, something that we wouldn't have anyway. So I was interested in this. I think it's exciting, and we'll see if anything happens. So
Question, who's generating the idea? Is it coming from Dr. Cog's staff, or?
MVIC, which is a subset of the board. And so we do have Boulder County on that, which is nice. And then also, I kind of wanted to discuss the civic space and the public process that we haven't quite completed for all of these. Did I give you a piece of paper? Yeah, thank you. This charrette that was given to ProStack to look at and have an engaged superior project coming forward for all the town to participate. I'm wondering where we're at with this, and is there any of these areas here that are going to be coming up for an FDP very soon?
So where we're at in the process is ProStack is scheduled to give a presentation to the board on April 14th. A summary of what the input they've received at the 2 public meetings, and just take comments from the board at that time on what they've received so far. We're scheduled to get a final development plan for the Phase 2 public improvements, but they will not include any specific recreation amenities.
So when this FDP comes forward, we will not be approving any amenities on any of the civic use properties on this?
Nope.
None? 0? Okay. I just want to make sure, because
That'll have to come back as a future FDP once the process has been completed.
okay, because I just want to make sure that the public is heard, that we've gone through the process, and that we have concepts that are brought forth to the board and to all the different committees. Yes?
When you're done, I want
To all the different committees, so that they all have this public input process, and that we did a very good job with Founders Park. I always want to call it 3 parks. And then we did a very good job with, thank you, Autry Park. I just want to make sure that we go down that same path, because, I mean, it generated great parks and great amenities, and they're being used, and so I think we did something right there. And so I would hope that we would do that here.
And the question or the follow-up I had was with Mr. Magley, and the timing, though, that we need to have this planning done seems to be quite distant if I finally understand all the elements of this plan, where we don't even touch any money for putting in any of this stuff for potentially years. Can you explain the how many dollars of loans and all the rest of that jazz thing that makes it so that this is not actually a critical time element at all?
So, the parks and outdoor amenities will be built with each, if a final development plan comes forward, it's approved, it'll be built as part of that phase of the project.
But the civic stuff? Anything that's civic stuff?
The indoor amenities, we've agreed to let the developer know by September 1st at the latest, it could be sooner than that, what types of indoor facilities the town would like to see. If it's in the town square on Main Street, they've agreed to build those within 2 years. If it's outside of the town square area, let's say indoor facility somewhere else in the project, then it's based on once $50 million of bond revenues have been issued, then they would build that indoor space.
Which is a known time. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
It's very
All right, so I just wanted to clarify on that. Thank you for transplanting any trees that you were viable in the northwest loop of US 36. I appreciate that. About 11 healthy trees are being transplanted elsewhere, so that's great. Thank you. I also wanted to find out about Campus Bridge, the Campus Drive, the bridge that we were going to create over US 36. It's on the PD. Is it still part of
It's on the PD.
It's still part of the PD?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the exact location still has to be determined.
Okay.
Right.
It's not off the table, though?
No.
You're not talking about the bike,
No, I'm talking about the drive.
Vehicle
Campus
access.
Drive, the bridge over 36. So that's not off the table. It is part of the PD. It would have to come for an amendment for that to change.
Right.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, the exact location, once the exact location is determined, which is, then we would have to, plan would have to be amended to include that.
Well, regardless of where it's placed, if it needs to be taken out of the PD, that would be an amendment, correct?
I'll have to go back and look.
Because it's on the PD, it's discussed, so I'm assuming that, that was...
I just don't remember if it shows a proposed location or not.
Kendra, do you know?
I don't know if it shows a
We'll have to
proposed
look.
location. If it does, then you're right, it would need to be amended. If it doesn't, then it
Okay,
would not need to.
it does show. I mean, I just looked at it before I came here just to review it. So I just want to make sure that that's not something that can just willy-nilly be removed from the PD.
No.
Okay, great. The other, I just wanted to make a comment about the Louisville Superior Joint Interest Committee that
Yeah.
I'd be happy to be someone's alternate, and if someone is not interested in doing that at all, I'll be happy to take that on. But I'd love to be an alternate.
I was going to bring it up during my report, so we can
Okay.
talk about it now if you want, or when I get to mine, so.
Let's just get through this, the
Okay.
board. Yep. Trustee
turn.
Pennington?
Yes. Let's see here. I'm actually trying to shorten up my traffic things to spare you all. Some of us, more than I, went to the 36 Commuting Solutions this month, I think Joe, Deb. Alex and Randy from Ranch Capital made a presentation to 36, that was this time period, right? 36 Commuting Solutions on the Superior Town Center. They did a nice job on that. Otherwise, thought the meeting was somewhat uneventful. You guys were the main performers there, and I thought did a nice job. Had a Louisville Library Board meeting. Matt attached their 2014 work plan to the digest. And then a specific home in original town has been mentioned for little libraries. Joe, you weighed in on that. Matt, is that your decision?
Yeah,
Or did you
we're going to
work
work
with-
with them, and do we just contact the library director, I guess, to work through that? or-
Well, if they want the unpainted version, so
Right.
they can paint it however they
Yeah.
please, just do it before whatever date I gave you in April, because
Okay.
the plan was to have a painting party on that day.
Okay.
And then at that same time, if they need help with books to stock it, that
Right.
request can be made as well, so that's exciting. So at some point, Superior can weigh in whether or not we want more than one little library in the neighborhood. The first Superior Eagle Scout, I think, is no longer interested in the project, but I think another Eagle Scout has popped up who would like to do the project, so I don't know if you want to see how it goes with this first one, but eventually we'll have the opportunity to weigh in on more of them in town. I'm a supporter for as many as the town will
Yeah.
bear. I think they're a great idea, so,
It does seem to me that by one of the elementary schools would be a nice place for one.
right.
I know one Boulder School, elementary school, has one.
I think we can handle, I think 10's a goal. I mean, I think we can, if we want to see how this one goes. I certainly think there's merit to that. But anyway, put that thought in your mind. On OSAC, was not able to attend this month's meeting. I did talk to the chairperson, however. They're looking for direction from the board on whether or not to pursue this idea of a joint working group on the Coal Creek corridor or to have them assume that responsibility. They're certainly prepared to do the latter. And so if that's something we want to decide now or decide later, it's still sort of this open question.
Run that by me one more time.
You'll remember that they had expressed concern about the Coal Creek corridor and sort of the protection of that corridor, particularly in Superior Town Center and Rogers property as it develops, has sort of not been done, really, and they're prepared to take that on. When they expressed that idea, the idea was presented to potentially create a working group, sort of the kind created for Hodgson Harris, to include both ProStack, OSAC, community participants, et cetera. I raised this cup maybe a month ago or 6 weeks ago. So they would like direction from the board on how the board wants to proceed on that matter.
Trustee Scamas.
C3 is within OSAC's purview, and I'd like to see them taken on if that would be my preferred design.
Is that,
That would be my preference too,
Okay.
rather than create a new entity.
I think there was some interest in ProStack too, to be a part of that group.
right, I think that was the reason behind the potential working
So,
group.
yeah, so I would say that we include them too.
And actually, I'd like to see OSAC take this on first, and then if they want to create this working group, then they could bring on the other entities. But I think that
It seems their purview.
first, yeah, that's the first start.
Okay.
Do you have, are you going
Honestly,
to weigh in?
I have zero opinion about this one or the other, whatever people want to do. I think
Right.
it's going to be great. And so,
Well, since,
so it sounds like
one,
ProStack.
two, three, well, I'll weigh in. I think it's a wise idea to start with OSAC as well. And so if that makes the majority head nod.
And I'm not saying that the working group is not
Yeah.
a good idea. I do think it's a good idea, but I think this is a great start.
And it looks like something nice and
Meaty.
nice and meaty to work on it, that they haven't gotten as much of.
I was under the impression that both OSAC and ProStack, some members of each group got together and did wish that both groups would start this working group.
That is in fact what happened. However, it was raised once more at OSAC last meeting. And they asked that the board weigh in on it and give the board's perspective on what the board would like to see happen. So that's why I'm asking for that.
ProStack already has lots on their plate, let's give it to OSAC, I say.
Yeah, I would still advocate for, because the last meeting I was at with ProStack, they were on board with participating in this working group, so I would still advocate that they be a part of this from the outset, unless something has changed within ProStack. But I think that they're
ready to start right at the beginning.
Yeah. So that's why I'm putting it before the board. Does the board want to pursue the working group concept, or does the board want to pursue?
Having OSAC.
OSAC.
Start with OSAC.
OSAC.
Okay, that's why I'm bringing
Then
it up.
ProStac
Chris.
can weigh in on it too, down the,
Right. There's never any exclusion of anybody at those
I think
meetings.
OSAC
Exactly.
do a great job on it.
So, but they just ask for direction. That's how when I talked to the chairperson, that's what she asked me to ask for. I don't either know what the wildlife walk, how many turned up. I do know 30-some odd signed up.
Correct.
Reservations.
And I'll follow up on that.
Wasn't a nice day.
And this doesn't have to be online, I mean, within the context of this meeting, but I did get I think we all got Kendra's response to our request for sort of I don't know what this is, a
Summary,
spreadsheet?
Yeah, I was going to come back to that.
Of responsibilities, outstanding responsibilities, et cetera. And I have some problems with particularly how the civic space responsibilities are being characterized in this. Let me first say what I...
Before we start,
Yeah.
so this is marked as attorney-client privilege, so we
Right.
need to either release this as unprivileged or
Right. So
talk
And
about
I'm
it.
going to talk about generalities, so I won't.
I'm happy
I have strong
actually-
feelings about it one or the other, but I think we should...
I'm happy to defer the conversation to a more appropriate forum, but I just, since it came out, I didn't want a lack of response to suggest that everybody was okay with it. So what's the appropriate mechanism
Well,
to
I
discuss?
see the town manager getting ready to weigh in.
I would say maybe have a conversation with Kendra outside of the meeting, and then if we need to follow up in executive session, we can do that as well.
Okay.
And if there's any concerns, and it didn't seem like there was anything that was controversial, that potentially we could just release it as general, for general
Let me just take a
consumption.
quick look at it before.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that, though.
Okay.
I'm pulling it up right now.
So I prefer this be an entire board discussion, not a one-on-one discussion. And also, I'm just going to go in generalities here. I like the chart format, and a lot of the legalese that you put in were important to put in, but what I also want to see is different categories. Maybe there's a civic and park use category, and there is a school parcel category, because there's some agreements on the school parcel that is not in here, which is after 4 years, if BVSD does not decide to use the property, then we get $2 million to use how we choose for park and civic use. That's not in there. The whole purpose of this document, in my eyes, is it's a history, a sort of cheat sheet on the history of what has been agreed upon. Not how we got there, but what is agreed upon. So that you're not wading through 2,000 documents, 2,000 pages, 10,000 pages. You have a cheat sheet of the history of what is most important and what is different from any other PD or town code. And so arranging it in topics per chart may make it easier to read. I like the idea where the particular agreement came from. It came from the CSA, or it came from the PD, or the design guys. I like that. But maybe there's a chart that's all about the TIF, and there's a chart that's all about the metro districts, and there's a chart that's all about town code deviations that are completely different than town code, like the parking and the setbacks. Then there'd be, anything about the open space. There'd be restrictions and things that we have put in there that are different. There's the 300-foot buffer, and there's a number of things that you would not know. So this is sort of that institutional knowledge that anyone today who forgot it, or anyone in the future that comes on board would need to read this and understand it. So I guess that's kind of how I see it organized.
So,
Then you better download Muckle's Brain for what's in,
so let's,
Area 1 and,
so
yeah.
can we do this? Can we just have an executive session at the next meeting where we can discuss this in some more detail? I think that the board in general is going to be interested in just releasing this for public consumption. I don't see anything
And
after you get it, take a look
Sure,
at it.
I can certainly put this in a format for public consumption, that's fine.
And so I also think, just to save your time and effort, I think you've done enough of it that puts the legal aspect into it, and that maybe town staff could do the rest in terms of organizing it and putting all the other idiosyncrasies and all the differences and all the agreements that we made into, a format.
And just to clarify, this does only cover the agreements in the more the legal sense and not the zoning documents that you approved. And it sounds like some of what you're looking for is to pull out some of those things that were included in the plan development plan and things like that.
And I mean, we'll make every attempt to have that by the next meeting, but I can't guarantee it.
Fair enough.
Oh, fair enough, I get that. But, I'm sure town staff is a little cheaper. And I know that they've been through it, the ringer with this. They probably have a lot of it memorized, and they're probably thinking, oh, don't forget about this, and don't forget about that. And I just was giving an example with the school parcel that isn't in here, and that is a significant deviation from anything we've done before. And I think it would be important to know.
So, just
Trustee
finish
Pennington.
up here. The purpose of this is the historical document part. I mean, we've got elections coming this fall, there's going to be turnover, it's going to be short order before you have a whole new crew up here. So to create historical documents that not only we can refer to, but new boards and new mayors and everybody can refer to. And I don't think next meeting is not critical for me. If it happens in the next several months, I'm good with it. And then meeting notes. I don't think we've seen RCAC minutes or notes for several months now. And
Yeah, so the February meeting was canceled. The March meeting, I haven't gotten those. I was the one that headed up that meeting.
Right.
I haven't completed those and gotten them to the committee so they could look at them first before I include them in the packet.
Right.
So that's
I think it goes way back to December, maybe. So I just want to put out the thought that if, I don't care if we have official minutes as much as I know, I care that we have sort of a state of what's happening with various committees. For example, we had the same discussion with the Planning Commission. Let's say the Planning Commission wouldn't meet for, let's say we hit a wall and you wouldn't meet for a couple of months. I'd still want those notes, or the essence of what they discussed distributed, even if they wouldn't be approved. Certainly the chairman could have reviewed them.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get those to the board. I just I wanted to give the committee an opportunity to look at them first, so.
Yeah, I understand that as well, but
He's a new note taker.
Yeah, if in fact there's a big lag, then we have a different issue, that's all.
I'm just going to throw one more thing. In some of this summary, in this chart that was created for kind of a history of the town center, the exchange of land is not robust in that discussion. It talks about land that we've bought, that we gave over to the town center, and that in turn the developer used for the Boulder Valley Ice. But also in that agreement was land that the town would use as well for civic and park use. And those properties were identified on here. So I just want to make sure that that's actually put in here. That's another history that would be important to understand when you're looking through this document. And then one other comment is when we discuss certain blocks or we're referring to something specific, maybe at the bottom of the document, we have a diagram of where Block 6 is, or Lot 2, or something like that, so that you don't have to look through all the PD. You can
As
look
far
for-
as the land exchange?
Right, there's
that kind of
a
thing?
comment
Yeah.
about Block 6, and, you know, I'm thinking, I don't remember Block 6. Oh, my God, I have to look it up. Oh, my God, I've got to go through 1,000 pages. Just having a little diagram at the bottom of anything that we refer to would be very helpful.
Mr. Magley?
My first one kind of ties into the April 14th, well, it does tie into the April 14th meeting. So that's our next dinner with the advisory committee. We've scheduled ProStack. One of the directions out of the retreat from the board was that you'd like at least 5 board members to be present at those dinners. Right now, we know of 2 that are going to be gone on the 14th. Is there anyone else that's not going to make the April 14th meeting? Because I would have to reschedule that dinner. If you could just let me know, because I would have to reschedule that, so. Thank you. And then our next open house for people that are interested in maybe serving on one of the advisory committees has been set for Thursday, April 3rd, starting at 6 p.m. It'll be held here at the boardroom here at Town Hall.
Sure it isn't 6:30?
It's 6 to 7:30. Or, no, it is 6:30. You're right,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
sorry. Yeah. Thank you for that. And then as Trustee Williams mentioned, the request from the City of Louisville about this joint interest committee. It sounds like it's a expansion of the interchange committee into this joint interest committee. And some of the topics, as I mentioned, that they wanted to possibly discuss is the 88th Street Campus Drive connection, water, wastewater services, safe routes to school, the town center, of course, library services, and, other things that might be of joint interest.
Does it need to be a subset, or can it just be whoever can make meetings?
Their request is to identify two
Yeah, I'm sure.
elected officials and 1 staff person. And they've identified Hank Dalton, who's their mayor pro tem, and Ashley Stolzman.
And on the interchange committee, currently from the town,
Is
Joe?
Joe, mayor pro tem, and then Elia.
and Elia, right? So,
And if any changes are going to be made to those 2 gentlemen, I would like to put my name in the hat to serve on that committee. I just want to have some continuity with the library issue.
And that's another the meetings are
I already
attend
mentioned
because,
They tend to be,
so do we need to
that's fine.
adopt something to approve this committee, or we're just
Trying to
going to?
think, when the board has made appointments in the past to these various committees, I don't remember a resolution.
Is there an interchange? I guess if you could just,
the interchange committee came out of the IGA, I believe. So that was an IGA driving that.
so if there's a resolution tied to anything, great. If not, then
And we could have something for the
leave
next
the
year.
interchange committee do it, I guess, for right now.
So here's
But I
my,
have other thoughts about this, but trustee Scamano.
and why do they get to decide to make it to the committee? Can't we decide we'd rather have 2 people or 3 people or 4? Why does it have to be their designation of who's on it, or how many?
It was just their suggestion. They're just going off of what's on the interchange committee currently. I mean, if we want to go back to them and say, we'd like 3 elected officials.
There's a lot of interest.
So
Can we legally do that? I mean, is there an issue?
we'd have to post it, we'd have to post it as a meeting at this rate, but,
We could have everybody if it was,
so, well, trustee Pennington.
That's just what I was going to say. If it's posted, as many as are
Whoever wants to come.
interested can
Right.
attend.
So, in terms of being collegial with our friends across the way, I guess I would sort of continue down this path. At the end of the day, if there's any large topic that's going to be brought up, it's going to be a joint meeting between their city council and the town board. So, if they think this is helpful, great, but it's not going to be very productive, I don't think. But
I actually will go the extra step and say, I think it's actually a great idea.
I do too.
So,
Well, my experience of the interchange committee, which had its ups and downs over a long period of time, not the committee itself, but the agreement would not have ever been successfully concluded without the ongoing committee effort. So I think it's a good idea.
So just in terms of this, I'm just going to now do a thought experiment here. They bring up the town center and they say, well, we'd really like to do X. What's the committee going to say? Interesting, let me ask the board.
Thank you so
know?
much.
Thank you so much.
Your input.
Or we would like to build a 36 connection from 88th Street. Great, thanks very much, let me ask the board. So, if that's helpful for people, great, but once again, at the end of the day, it's all going to come back to the board for discussion.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
anybody that's on the committee is going to have to report back to the board and then take direction and to proceed with any further discussion.
Non-committal.
So, sounds like the board is interested in this, and so, great. So we'll continue with people that are identified on the interchange committee with several
And we'll
people
post
that
it.
would be interested in being alternates and post it, and anybody can
And
show up.
I would recommend that anybody who is interested attend.
My guess is that they're trying to make it if you're creating this committee, it's probably so you can actually accomplish something with limited discussion. I think so. We just need to let them know that
That's
more
not
people will be coming from our side.
Okay.
Let's see what their take on that is.
At the end of our joint meeting with them, we did suggest renewing efforts, and so I think this is a good step forward. We haven't met in a long time since the interchange agreement seemed to move forward, and so I think it's a really good idea. The more that we do together, meet together, whatever, the better.
And then my last item is with regard to municipal court. Judge Miller, Ron Miller, has announced that he's going to retire. He's been with the court since it was first started here in Superior, so he's been here a long time, and I think he's done a great job. He's going to be missed, and he has agreed to stay on until we find a replacement. The question for the board is, since you appoint the municipal judge, what process would you like to use to find the replacement? I know of one person that is interested, our current prosecuting town attorney, David Thrower, who's been with the court for a long time, is interested in the position. I think it'd be great, but if there's a certain process the board would like to use,
I think David would be fantastic, and I could see that he might move into that, but we need to have a more robust process about asking for RFP, RFQs, whatever you want to.
So we'll do that, and then we'll have to schedule interviews with the entire board for the candidates once we've got a list. So we'll start that process right away.
Very good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Town attorney?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Thank you. Town clerk? All right, that brings us to 5, public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items.
George? No, go ahead. No. I don't have anything.
Okay. Any other public comment? We pulled the liquor license to follow the, presentations, there aren't any. Consent agenda is approval of the minutes of the March 10th, 2014 Board of Trustees meetings. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Trustee Hanson, second by Trustee Sorelli. Thank you very much. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
I believe I wasn't there.
Okay. That brings us to what was the approval of a liquor license transfer of ownership application for a new owner of Sushi Yama. I'm sorry, who brought this?
All right, I
Trustee
pulled
Sorelli.
it, and the reason I pulled it, maybe staff can help with these, is first, is it correct, we have not had a background, don't have a completed background investigation. So I guess we have, and the temporary license can only be in effect for 120 days. That was in December, so that's coming up on a deadline. Can that be extended till we get the,
No, we have a couple options that we can do. We can approve it conditionally tonight, so that if there's some problem that comes back with the check, then, that the condition wouldn't be fulfilled, and we would go back to them not having a liquor license. The other option is you can also approve it tonight without that condition. If we learn of any issue with the background check, you would be able to revoke the license at that point for failure to provide accurate information on the application. So there's really two ways to go.
so I'd be interested in the conditional approval if you could help me with some problem issue. Is there, if there's any issue coming out of the background check, then we'd have to have it, bring it back for possible hearing, or?
Yes, basically. If we noted any issue in that background check, we would bring it back.
So that's what I would favor doing, if we can word that, to have it approved, assuming there's no issue coming on the background check. But I also pulled this from the consent agenda, because I didn't see how you get there on a consent agenda.
Yeah, we had that
We had this
discussion
conversation this
earlier.
afternoon, so yes.
I'll second that with the condition attached.
Discussion about this? Thank you for pulling it. I mean, I guess I knew that that's what we were going to do, but I didn't realize it was on the consent agenda, sort of in my mind, so.
If we did, that's what we were talking about today, and really go either way, so.
Okay.
So maybe if I make a motion that,
Is there any public comment
Okay.
regarding this
I
issue?
already seconded it, so I think we're good. Think you want to make
Okay.
a statement?
well, I move that we approve the transfer of the liquor license for,
Sushiyama.
I gotta get the name, Sushiyama Restaurant, subject to the transfer for, oh gosh,
Do we have to say the names? That's what we're starting.
No, that's okay.
for Sushiyama Restaurant, subject to the condition that the background check, which has not been finally completed, comes in with no issues that would cause us to have a hearing.
Again, second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. That brings us to what was, and this can be very brief, but the recreational vehicle discussion, and the resident was unable to stay. So I assume that the board wants to have, yep, you're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I assume the board wants to have a discussion about this, so I just wanted to clarify that. So,
Yes.
and do we want the staff to put together options of what to do? There was a discussion about, should we move from 5 days to 48 hours? Is that something that you want staff to work on?
In comparison to the community sort of thing, the usual.
Only comment I have is, I'm a little reluctant to rewrite our code for one scofflaw. And that's what I think is what we're,
I think you're right. I mean, okay, so I'm just free associating and venting now. But it's really unfortunate that people that are unwilling to take personal responsibility causes us to actually have to think
Yeah.
about this.
and spend money on it.
Again, and it blows my
Spend staff
mind.
time and money on it.
We actually had another issue, if you'll recall, maybe a year or so ago with a problem in Original Town with a recreational vehicle being parked for a long time. It involved a health issue, I think. I think we had to issue a variance at that time, didn't we? Or we made some accommodation.
A temporary use permit.
Yeah. So I suspect it's happening more often and people are simply not complaining about it. They may be putting up with it, so I'd like us to at least attempt to, put it through the motions and see what we come up with.
So I think the staff recommended that perhaps the Transportation and Safety Committee would look at this initially for discussion and then bring that forward to the board. Is that?
Be careful what you ask for.
No,
Yeah.
sounds like it's within their purview. So if people are happy with that, then
Yeah.
it seems like a reasonable approach.
I think all of these suggestions by the resident, they're good suggestions. However, I think only 3 or 4 are actually viable or even something that we should consider. And I'm not saying that I'm going to vote for that, but the first 3 or 4 make sense to me. But I think the rest is getting a little ticky-tack and a little personal. So if other areas, other municipalities do 48 hours, I don't see why we can't consider that.
Yeah, we have a survey that we'll update and get out to the board.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to have that discussion. So that's all I wanted to be sure what we're talking about. So that brings us to item number 8. Mr. Magley.
Thank you, Mayor. Alex and his staff have been working on this for several months. It's an update to our roadway and design standards and our utility standards. The Planning Commission has reviewed these and made a recommendation to the board for approval. Alex has a presentation that he's going to give to the board, and then we'll open it up for any questions that you might have.
Alex, I will say, since I'm the only outlier here, you can really shorten this.
Just yes.
This is really a really exciting presentation.
Right.
I'll run through kind of the highlights. First of all, the process, we've had Dave Heinrich has been the lead on this, as well as Jim Widener. I don't know if you've met Jim. Jim's our utilities superintendent, and he's looking at all the water and sewer standards. J&T, our civil engineering consultant, has assisted us in doing research on various standards. Rick Davis, who is now our full-time construction inspector, has provided input. And really what we wanted to do, since we're gearing up for construction of several projects, we wanted to make sure that we had the best standards in place to ensure that we had quality construction. So we really focused on pavement design, things of that nature, to make sure the roads and streets and infrastructure are completed with the best quality possible. Planning Commission reviewed it on March. Tonight is just an overview discussion, and then we'll come back. I don't know if the 14th is when we have it scheduled to come back for approval, and we'll approve it by ordinance for the road standards, and then the SMD1 or the utility standards are part of the SMD1 rules and regulations, so that'll be a resolution for that. So starting with the roadway criteria, we last amended them in 2003, and at that time we looked, really focused on the policy issues, how wide the street should be, some of the planning aspects. So we really didn't review a lot of that, those issues in this update, so we can talk about them. We really didn't change sidewalk widths and road widths and all that kind of stuff. But what these standards do is that when the engineers design the roads and when they are constructing them, these are the guides that they use to follow to implement things in the field. So we want to make sure that they're using the best. So we knew that the construction was coming up for the town center, so we wanted to review these. And actually, this update was scheduled for next year, but we thought we'd move it up and get things as quickly as we can in place for the upcoming construction season. So what we provided, and I know it's confusing when you get a red line, it's pretty difficult to read. So you have the red line drawings, both the text changes and the drawing changes. And then we've also provided a summary of the Planning Commission comments, and as I go through here, I'll kind of focus on what the Planning Commission looked at and decided. So what's changed in Chapter 1, most of that was formatting. We deleted references to the Superior Metropolitan District because that was covered elsewhere. We provided discretion in certain approvals to the Town Engineer and Planning Commission. We updated reference documents, and we changed the S&D stormwater regulations because you approved those a year and a half ago as part of your Chapter 11 update, so that's all covered in the municipal code. So we took those out of the references in this section. And we moved figures 1.1 and 1.2 to the details section. So what a Planning Commission comment, there was an issue about alleys and why was there an 8-foot setback. And so we determined, well, alleys are 16 feet wide and then you have an 8-foot setback. And we determined that was because when you back up, normally you have a garage or something in the alley. So you don't want to, if you had just 16 feet, you could back up into the other building on the other side. So that's why we provided the 8-foot setback, and we provided a reference for why we were doing that. There were also a number of comments about variances and whether the town engineer or the planning department or planning commission should decide on those. In this particular case, in section 1.224L, it really had to do with a variance that will go through, the staff, and then it'll go through planning commission and town board. So it's all part of the PD planning process. So we felt we didn't really need to call it out here. So we were fine with that change. And in here, there were various instances where planning commission said, hey, there's certain issues that the planning staff can take care of. We don't have to be involved in some of these. And all those are references to that. And then there was a reference to planning commission and town engineer, and I think this had to do with the right-of-way, additional right-of-way on arterials.
Alex, we're missing one of those, the one that references section 2.1.A. It's the only one I had an issue with, and it's missing off that list.
He's still in chapter 1?
It's on the cover memo. It's item number 8 on the...
On the summary of the...
Yeah.
Okay.
And it looks like it was accidentally left off the bullets there.
And it's not on here? On here?
Here, this item 8 on here, on that memo. Here, this one. It's not up there.
Oh, there was another one?
This, okay, if you go to your page like 320 of your iPad page numbers, where it gives the memo.
From the Planning Commission.
From the Planning Commission. The last item on that memo is section 2.1.A. And the Planning Commission, it said in the second sentence, change Planning Department to Planning Commission. However, when you read that in the context of 2.1.A and the text put forth by Alex's staff, it would read, this involves, for planned developments, new or altered access must be obtained through the town's platting process, period. This involves applying through and it would read, through the Planning Commission to create or amend the property's final development plan. And to me, that should properly be applying through the planning staff to create or amend the property's final development plan. The application's put through staff, then it goes through its normal process. So that was the one of these changes that...
The intent there was that there's a planning process. It's going to end up at the Planning Commission, but you're right, the actual application goes through the planning
staff, and then the staff puts it through the rigmarole.
Right. We can change that to staff, and then maybe also reference that it does get to the Planning Commission. mean, it goes
Okay.
through.
I just want you to know, I
Yeah.
read these.
Yes.
So,
And actually, I was going to mention that what was off to me was the hierarchy of approval. That's what threw me off here, because it looked like the planning commission was the final approval, and that's not what you're trying to do here. So it
No.
was
Yeah,
just worded.
a lot of the variances, we didn't want to leave it with the variances to the standards. We don't want to leave with the planning staff or the town engineer unless it's a very minor thing. But most of those get vetted out through the process. Where
All steps.
it goes to the planning commission, it goes to the town board, all those variances.
Right.
So you're, not only planning commission, the town board reviews those as well.
Yeah, so it's just, to me, it was the routing of the authority process.
Okay. Chapter 2, not a whole lot changed here. There were a couple of things, again, in terms of department and staff and so forth that we just clarified. The big changes were really in Chapter 3, and that deals with pavement design and technical criteria. And here, after 2 years of watching what's underneath the roads and seeing what's there, it was a priority for us to really make sure that we get this right. So we made a number of changes here, looking at CDOT standards, our consultants that work for us, our thicknesses of the pavements, how we treat the base and so forth. So a number of changes here to really focus in on the quality of the materials.
And I don't know CDOT standards or what CDOT standards will ultimately make happen. I just want to make sure that they have to have excavated unlike the others did on Indiana. So that if you've got if you're not at the right layer, you have to like dig down and make it the right kind of layer. And if that means core samples and inspections or lots of them, to me, it has to be done that right the first time right, because otherwise we're going to be in the same boat. So are you going to tell me that these changes make it so that Indiana can't ever happen?
I hope so, yes.
Lisa, that's actually why I pulled this, and I'm going to beg to differ with you until you prove to me, because the requirements we have in here for expansive soils, I think, well, I'm very concerned about them. I'll bring them up when you're done with your presentation here, but that's the big reason I pulled
Right,
this.
and in terms of the expansive soils, our consultants say that these requirements will make it really force some sort of lime stabilization, fly ash, or stabilization other than moisture treated. There'll be a higher level of subgrade stabilization that we've had in the past.
In Indiana, it wasn't a problem only of expansive soils, it was a problem of layers, right?
Well,
Different kinds of stuff going through and then stopping and treating it all as if you can just top it instead of getting down to the right layers. So expansive soil is only one of the problems, so that's all I'm arguing.
Right, so what we've changed is, we go through this, we have, first of all, how they do their testing, when they do their testing, because we're saying that they put their pipes and we've got to put water lines, storm lines, and sewer lines in there, and then you have your backfill and stabilization of the roadway. And at that point, when everything's in, then we do our soil tests to see, all right, after all that stuff's in, what does the subgrade look like? And, how does it test, and then does it have the proper, does it pass the swell tests and so forth? So that's when we have our geotechnical test, and that's when we have
Yeah,
our
I do want to
recommendation.
reserve the right to go to the specific areas of concern after you're done with your presentation.
So, that's what we do. And then we have the pavement design from the geotech. Here's the soils we have, and here's what they can support. And so here's our recommendations following these standards for any type of subgrade stabilization, either moisture treated, but in this case, it's probably more like a lime treated or a fly ash or other stabilization to get that subgrade to the strength that we want before we put the pavement sections. and then the pavement sections have all been almost doubled. Before we had, for our local pavement section, we had a 3-inch asphalt layer, now it's 6 inches. And really why we're doing that, because if you have 3-inch, and then down the road, if we need to do any type of maintenance, if you mill off an inch or an inch and a half from a 3-inch layer, you don't have much left. So we've increased all our pavement sections to beef them up, and we have much stronger sections in terms of testing and pavement design. So do you have specific questions on those, trustee?
I do, but I'm going to let you
Okay.
go through, and then I'll go to specific areas.
So these are, we've added another way of doing your pavement design. It's called resilient modulus method. Before we had 2 other methods, we've added one that now is in vogue in terms of how you design this. We've added parameters for subgrade stabilization, and that's the most important thing we've done here to beef that up. We've revised how you calculate your loadings, looking at equivalent single axle loadings. What that means, the maximum axle loading that you can have on a roadway is 18 kips or 18,000 pounds, which is 9,000 tons per axle. So if you ever look at a 40-ton truck, that's kind of your typical loaded truck, and that's spread over 5 axles, typical tractor trailer, so you would have 9 tons per axle. That would be 36, and then that front axle is usually 4 tons. So, and then for each design, you want to have so many of these. You're going to design for so many. For local street, it's going to be in the thousands. It's a 20-year design, and it's in the thousands. For arterial, it's going to be much higher. So it gets in, and there's a table there. It's several hundred thousand for the local, and almost over $1 million, I think, for arterials. So that's one change. Okay. We've updated 3.4, table 3.4 deals with the pavement sections, and we've, again, beefed all those up to really provide for long-term maintenance activities. How do we overlay the roads, or mill and overlay the roads down below, as well as strengthen the sections to carry these loads. We updated table 3.5 to reference CDOT specs, and CDOT has new pavement design and mixes, so we've relying on them to keep up with the latest in terms of the asphalt mixes and so forth. So we'll rely on their specs. Another key one, we've eliminated a section that was allowing for 1-year warranty periods, and we've said no, we want 2-year warranty periods. And you were allowed 1-year warranty period by not putting the final lift of asphalt, that you'd go within an inch of the final lift, and you come back a year later, put the final one in, and call it good, and you're done. And we said no, we still want a 2-year warranty. And we've added another section on rigid pavements, which we're going to have up in the...
And are we legally disallowed from making it longer than 2 years?
Excuse me?
Are we legally disallowed from making it longer than 2 years? Is that
The
unfair?
warranty longer than 2 years?
Yeah, I'm just,
But for longer ones,
no, I want to know, could we have put in 3 years or 4 years, or other? Is there some state law that doesn't allow us to make that longer?
well,
Well, then why would we stick
it
with
doesn't.
1 or 2 years?
Because it
Well, it's a
become, I think it'd be
cost.
prohibitively expensive.
It's cost and contractors, getting contractors to come in and to do that warranty period.
But it's not our problem, it's somebody else's problem.
Along Lisa's line,
Except that you don't get people
there seems to be a disconnect. Somewhere in here, we say our expectation is a 20-year service life, but we have this short warranty period in an environment where we know we have difficult soils. So it seems to me that we're just sort of begging these people to come in, slap something down. Most things last 2 years, no matter what, and then the town's left holding the bag. So that indeed goes to
a long-standing
That's
problem.
2 years after we accept the
I don't-
improvements.
it's still 2
I
years.
mean, you're making the assumption, I think, that my staff's not out there doing the job that they've been hired to do to make sure the work is performed like it's supposed to be.
Not at all.
They can't foresee everything.
Yeah, not at all. The fact is, our history, I've only been on the board for 4 years, and we're redoing and redoing and redoing at great expense, and I presume previous staffs were as well competent. But there is some variable that's happening here that is causing streets to fail and us to be left holding the bag. So, I think this is a major budget
I can
item.
return, with some research whether other entities are requiring longer warranty periods. 2 years is a fairly long warranty period.
I'd be very
Others have-
interested in seeing it, any list of places that do it longer. And if there's any way, and I brought this up the town manager also, that I would love to see if there was some way to make sure that there was skin in the game for folks 5 years or whatever years out. I just don't, I think there's every incentive otherwise to make it last exactly the right amount of time. Sell it to somebody else and be out of the picture. And that's for roads, for every bit of the buildings, all that stuff over there. I'm very concerned, so.
So before we have staff spend time to do that, I have zero interest in that, so I just don't want to, I want to know if there's anybody else who wants to.
I'm going to go to some specific things in here that I'm concerned may not be rigorous enough, and I just want you to tell me why they are rigorous enough.
So I just want to put this to bed, though. So there was a discussion about having staff go out and seeing if there's other places that do something
If I can say down that vein, the fact is, we know we live in a very dynamic environment, meaning our subsoils are moving constantly below us. So I'm interested in knowing, and you may already have this answer, how other communities in our same situation, because it's a problem along the whole Front Range, Erie's got the same problem, how do other communities with our, I will call them unstable, meaning the subsurface issues are unstable because of the expansive soils, and how do other towns try to deal with that? And it may involve extended warranties or it may not. It may involve more rigorous construction standards. What do other communities in
Well,
our
we've
same
asked,
boat
we have a geotech consultant and a civil engineering consultant, and we've asked them to give us the best standards that are out there, and that's what we've incorporated here.
Out there in this area? Out there in this area, I think is your question.
Right.
Not just out there generally
world,
where there's
yeah.
great conditions to build roads, but out there in this kind of condition.
And yeah, we looked
Yes.
at, Bluefield just went through this, 'cause they're
I'm
dealing with the
sure they
same
did.
issue. They've just revised there, because they're dealing with the same issue over in Flatirons Crossing area.
Right.
And so we borrowed on some of their, new standards, because
But they don't know if they're going to work either. That's part of the, who's somebody who knows it works? Is there an area in our expansive soils with roads that stayed flat? What standards did they have? I guess that would be more
We try
powerful
to
to me
incorporate the
than...
best standards that we know of into these to make sure.
To address the issues that we have in
Right,
in
and
our
it's not
town.
like, that's why we're doing this, to avoid those issues. Whether we got the long warranty, I'm hesitant about the warranty period just because contractors, it'd be hard to find contractors that'd be able to do that.
So
'Cause they-
this was an issue for me, too. I wrote that down here about the 1-year warranty that was taken out and replaced it, too. But is there another option where you have insurance on it? So it's a third-party insurance, and then you collect on it, should it...
On our jobs, we have performance bonds, and during the warranty period, they have to correct any deficiencies that we find in that 2-year warranty period.
We're trying to go beyond the 2 years.
Right, that's what
She's
I'm-
trying to come up with a way to go beyond 2 years.
And that's
So,
the
outside the
question,
box
that's the
here.
question I don't know, is if you do that, are you going to get surety companies to issue those longer-term bonds like that. I mean, that's getting beyond my...
How about just traditional insurance,
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
like they do on homes in Rock Creek? A third-party warranty company.
I can look into that. I mean, I'm assuming at that point in time, the ownership is already transferred.
Right.
So that would be an insurance company insuring something that they no longer own, which
Right.
they're often hesitant to do, but
It's a third-party warranty company.
that may be an option.
Anyway, I still want you to finish this, and then I'll get to the, it seems like this is an issue beyond just, or an item of interest beyond just me on these expansive soils.
The next, so we left pavement design, and now we're in another section we haven't had in the past are technical specifications. How do you build these things in the field? So we've added a whole section on technical specifications, and these are things that we've used on our projects over the last couple of years, and we just put them in there because these are the specifications that we want the contractors to use out in the field. And they're pretty technical, and it's all new sections, and frankly, I'm not aware. This is over at Davis and Dave Heinrich putting these together, but it's all the stuff that we've been using in our contracts. And then there's a bunch of drawings and standard details, and these are, I'll just summarize some of the ones that we added. We've moved a couple of figures to the standard drawings. We've removed the nomenclature tables because they're covered by procedures we wrote up. We've added title block to track future revisions. So as we find a better standard, we'll be able to track that and update it. We revised the curb drain detail and added a clean-out detail for curb drains, under drains. Truncated domes, something that's wasn't in there before, and that's a new ADA standard that we've added. We now have a raised crosswalk standard, and the one we just built up on El Dorado is kind of the standard we're using. We have now a detail on sidewalk replacement. We've added curb ramp notes. We've added a type 2 curb ramp, which is the rounded one on the end of the street. We've added sidewalk chase details and typical pavement sections. So that's pretty much it. Before we get to utilities, so that's the road standards, and then we'll have another presentation from Jim on utility standards. So Trustee Pennington, if there are specific ones you want to go to?
Okay, so if anybody wants to follow, I'm on page 226 of the iPad version of the red line. And
2.2.
226. And I'm looking at 3.2.1, under subgrade investigation, and then it's field investigation. So 226 on the iPad page.
Is that 3.2.1?
3.2.1. Alex, before I go there, I just want to make a request. I made it all the way through 320, through page 320 of this, and then the PC recommendations were 319, and the Planning Commission recommendations were in 320. And I didn't like that. I would have liked the Planning Commission recommendations to be pages 1, 2, and 3, and have saved me a lot of extra work going through the 319 pages. So I'd appreciate that next time. So are you on 3.2.1? Mm-hmm. Okay, so to read that paragraph, it says, "The field investigation shall consist of borings or other suitable methods of sampling subgrade soils to a depth of at least 5 feet below proposed subgrade elevation, 10 feet on arterials," it goes on to say. Now, I've got a lot of experience with expansive soils in Rock Creek, and 5 feet to me, is absolutely nothing in terms of determining soil expansive issues. So I'm confused here. Why 5 feet and what does it do for us?
Yeah, and it's actually, there's probably another foot of subgrade and another, 6 to 9 inches of pavement. So you're probably going down 7 feet below the final pavement surface, so.
Yeah, but under these homes that we have all these structural issues with, the bores went way down, way down. And we're still having structural issues with these homes because of expansive soils. So, respectfully, 5 feet doesn't, I was shocked. I thought it was a typo until I heard it. I saw it numerous times. So can you give, or can the engineer or whatever?
That
can
was
you give him
a hard one for me to answer, but
Huh?
I mean, I think we're going to have borings probably around the whole site that are much deeper, I think. From the geotech investigations, like on the town center, they had borings, kind of a grid pattern, and I'm pretty sure they went much
But
deeper.
you're anticipating...
So this is over the streets.
Right. So I'm actually melding that idea. When we all went on the Superior Town Center tour, they were telling us that they had borings that went way down, and they have sort of a boring map of where the pockets of expansive soil, highly expansive soils were, moderately, et cetera. We have those for this community. Those were done, to my knowledge, for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 of Rock Creek's build-outs. So we have those, and I don't believe those expansive pockets shift. They're there pretty much, I think, for geological history or whatever. So have we pulled those out? Do we try to overlay those over where the current streets run? Are we trying to ascertain where we have the highest probability of potential issues? And in those places, I would expect this bore to go way below 5 feet.
And for the town center, as I recall, we over-excavated 10 feet, right?
For the town center?
Yeah. So I think we had geotech investigation of the whole site, and they decided to over-excavate 10 feet.
And what does that mean in terms, the bore goes down a lot deeper than 10 feet?
The original bore, yeah.
Right. So what does the
So the bore said,
over-excavation do?
well, we have these bad soils, so the geotech recommendation is to over-excavate 10 feet because they had those poor soils. So that's what was happening in the town center. But even with that, after they over-excavate and then they bring soil back in, okay, at that point, they follow their geotech recommendation. Then we want to do 5 feet where they're planning on putting the road, after they prepare the site according to their geotech recommendation. Then we want to make sure we know what's 5 feet down.
Except the 10-foot over-ex, they over-excavated my site, supposedly, and it wasn't 10 feet from surface. It was 10 feet below the lowest point of the basement. So I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're telling me.
All I'm saying is that there's going to be a geotech study for these sites.
Right.
Okay, and there's geotech recommendations on what to do to prepare the site.
Right.
Okay, and what to do to build roads on. So after they've followed all their geotech recommendations and they say they got a good site, then we want to do the borings, where the streets are going to go, and then we want to, again, verify what they put back in.
Yeah. I'm a skeptic. I've got a lot of background in this issue for various reasons, and 5 feet causes me great concern. So I guess, need to hear from you guys, is this the standard in expensive soils in the front range
If that's the
region?
question, our next presentation, we'll have the experts to give you that answer.
Great.
And I'll make sure they're here to
Absolutely.
explain what this means and
Right.
whether we have adequate protection.
And that they have comparables.
And going back, we have subdivision bores somewhere for PUD 1 and 2 of Rock Creek. And those went down far. And those pockets of extremely expansive soil should be our red flag. If we've got a roadway crossing those, or right on top of them, we have that information. My request is that we just use it to our advantage when we're building a road on top of it. So I'd like to see...
I'm saying we are using that, but after everything's brought in, they're ready to build the roads. Before they build it, we want to know exactly what we're going to be building on.
So essentially what's happening is that this is extra insurance. Basically, you're trying to identify whether or not you can build a road safely, basically putting on what's there right now, or you have to do something to ameliorate that. The developer in the town center has decided that I got to do something more than just generic construction. I'm going to over-exit 10 feet. Then I'm going to bring back stable soil. We're going to then put the subgrade down, but we're not going to believe that that's done appropriately, so we're going to send a board down and make sure that they did what they said they were going to do. That's my understanding of what's happening here.
Well, I'm glad to hear your...
No, I appreciate your concerns that you don't...
And then...
We're trying to do everything we can to
Right.
prevent what we...
So, going through to page 244 of this, it describes the fill requirements. I mean, it mentions fill, but nowhere in here did I see it mention a requirement to have certified, clean, non-expansive fill. Did I miss it?
I don't know what you mean by certifying.
Yeah. A problem in Rock Creek
Well,
appears to be that they brought in fill that was untested, and the fill ended up being expansive, just like the soil they took out. So the question is, how do we know it's clean, non-expansive fill?
and so trustee Pennington, you're talking about the note there on 244 and how our
Right.
either...
Hold on, I unfortunately did this on my home computer because it was easier, so I don't have it highlighted, but let me just, yes.
I think the note...
The note says, if any new fill material is imported on-site from other areas during the construction phases of the project, the town may require a new pavement design report or additional testing to verify the acceptability of this material for roadway fill. And,
So you just want may deleted?
well...
Or replaced with will
will.
required? Or is that what you're looking for there?
Well, yes, some assurance, will do it, but it will only do it if we have the mechanism in place to test and to enforce this requirement. But fill is oftentimes a very big problem because it's not clean, it's not non-expansive. So I'm just trying to figure out how we can do as much as we can in these standards to acknowledge and to build in a wise way roads that aren't so vulnerable to expansion.
Sure. And I think when you bring back material, there's actually specifications for the type of material you bring back, and that's, will be specified in the geotech report, as they go through the sampling, and there's a
Right.
lot more sampling than we've had in the past. But I'll answer that question.
My understanding in talking to the developer during the tour over there is that he intends to mix
Material on site.
soils. He digs soils from various places, and then he's going to mix them with the intention of diluting the expansiveness of it. And that's all sounds fine and good as long as somebody is measuring that fill before it goes back in the ground for that dilution.
Well, on the 3.2.4.3 is
Say that number again?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the page. Section 3.2.4.3. deals with swell tests. So once the material's in place, it's been moisture treated and everything's ready to go, they have to do the swell tests. And we've beefed up the requirements for the swell test. It's different than it was before, to make sure, and swell tests kind of test the degree that you have expansive soils, how expansive are they? And that's where, in this section, is where we've tried to beef up, and if it kind of flunks or whatever, you need to do some lime stabilization or other stabilization of the subgrade. So this is where we're testing whether the soil they're putting back
So what,
is going to function.
what percentage have we beefed this up, going from 102.0% to 150 and 1.5%?
I believe it was 2%, now it's 1%, and then,
It's 1.5.
yeah, instead of 1.5, I think before it was 2%, now it's 1.5. And then the depth down below, mitigation, about 8 lines down, mitigation could be over-excavation or recompaction and replacement with suitable non-expansive materials to a depth sufficient to protect the pavement. And we didn't have any depth on there before. Now we have 2
Or
feet.
defining what's
A
suitable
minimum
now,
of
too.
2 feet.
Alex, instead of doing this on the fly now, when you bring a person back
Yeah.
to explain it all to us, if you could explain
Sure.
how
Mhm.
we've increased those standards.
Sure.
But going to Lisa's point about, she expressed it in terms of warranty, but I'll put words in your mouth, but the ultimate goal is to have stable streets.
That's,
Right?
Yep.
Sure.
So when you come back, that's what I ask, is are we using absolutely the best practices known to this Front Range area for the construction of these roads?
and the topping is not nearly as important to me as the subgrade, so.
Right.
Yeah, I don't, maybe pavement design means pavement and the stuff under it, but pavement design, I saw lots of attention, but I want to make sure that also means what's underneath it.
What's under?
Can I ask just a couple of overarching
I'm done.
questions?
I
Okay,
just-
my questions are broader. One is, are these minimum standards, and can staff require more if we think it's a problem area? Yes or no?
Can we require more? I mean, what's in here? These are minimum. It'd be
what I'm
hard,
asking.
I mean, that's why we're beefing them up now. These are the
Right.
town standards. If you want to make them stringent, I guess now is the time to do them, if we can.
So
We're doing this to look at, are they constructible? Are we going to have, contractors?
So no, we can't on a parcel by parcel or area of town by area of town basis require something more. You're saying these are the
Well-
minimum and maximum standards, these are the
Well,
standards.
these deal with bad soil conditions, so if there's bad soil conditions, they gotta make them better. If you're in an area of town with good soil conditions, I mean, they meet it, so the testing will show they meet it, so they don't have to over-excavate, because they already have fairly good soils, and they've proven that to us.
My second question is, it sort of relates to roads, but not only relates to roads, and maybe I'm just a nervous Nelly, but what about like mines and holes and caverns and stuff like that? Does any of that matter about how deep we're boring and whether there are areas we ought to be nervous about or not nervous about building on and that sort of stuff? I know it's not
Subsiding.
related to streets, but I'm just going to raise it. Does that come in
Subsidence.
anywhere?
I mean, the geotech certainly looked at mines in the area and whether they were over a mine and whether there was a potential for subsidence. We must have.
I don't want a sinkhole.
The state has identified, I forget what their mining folks are.
I've never seen the maps, though. I mean, the
I
alleged
think that
maps,
they-
I've never
I think
seen
that
one.
They said that that wasn't a concern. I don't remember what the term is, and I don't remember.
Do you have a copy of that map?
It's just like Jefferson Parkway is
There's
the
an
concern.
app in the hallway.
Well, we can provide a copy of that to the board.
Well, I just didn't see anything about that in this. And then the third thing is, so these, you've given some standards details that talk about curbs and all the rest of that stuff. Town-wide, does that mean that anything that happens in original town now has to be up to a specific standard that's for or the rest of town? Because I thought that was something we were trying not to do.
Yes?
Well, for example,
I don't think original town would be
ADA
very happy about
requirements.
that.
When we reconstruct roadways, we have to make sure they're ADA compliant.
That's,
Right. When we
but
do-
you also talked about sidewalks and some other things in there, I heard.
Yes, we are doing that. And our new, our reconstruction,
Ask, terrible.
we had an issue with the bridge over there where some of the geometric standards, width and so forth, was probably different from this, but we haven't constructed anything that I've been involved in that didn't follow these standards. And
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm happy having uniform standards across the entire town, so that's, I'll just let you know now, on that sort of detail. So,
you want to do less quality in certain areas?
I wouldn't call it less quality, I'd call it different quality.
But in terms of quality of the construction, we will. In terms of ADA...
I'm talking about the details, like curbs and sidewalks and all that jazz, which you did walk through, so, I mean, yeah.
And
So anyway,
most of
let
it
me know.
is replacement, sidewalk replacements, but the ADA, all the curb ramps and all that stuff, we're required to follow the ADA standards.
But this isn't requiring that you have a sidewalk.
If you
and
make a
have
change in the
curb.
roads, you have to, right?
No, but I mean, if you're going to make a change to a roadway, like what we're doing on Indiana, if we're reconstructing the roadway like out there, and there's a ramp there, and it's not ADA compatible, we got to make it ADA compatible.
So if there's another road down the street that does not have sidewalks or curbs,
And we're not touching it, we're not going to change it. Right.
but if we needed to replace it,
If it's,
this document is not saying that it has to have sidewalks and
Yes.
curbs.
I think it is.
if it's a simple mill and overlay, that's all we're doing. We're not adding new sidewalks or to it, so it would be just a maintenance project.
So if we have to reconstruct Second Avenue, though,
Exactly.
then we've got to put in sidewalks. and
I'm not in
curbs.
favor of that.
If you're reconstructing it.
Or reconstructing an area
More
by
than
a
just a
bridge.
mill and overlay. I mean, because
Yeah.
we repaved original town a couple of years ago, north of the creek, and we just did a mill and overlay. And there's no sidewalks there, and we didn't install new
But at some
sidewalks.
point, are we going to have to reconstruct some of those, like Second, Third Avenue? I mean, you know what we're saying is
Yeah.
that the original town folks are going to say, we don't want
Right.
sidewalks.
They have
we don't
said
want
that
curbs."
many times.
Well, again, this is our guidelines. This is what the staff, and what we tell the staff and contractors and engineers to design to. There's always variances, and you have the power to vary the standards.
Can't we have two standards?
No,
You know, and we choose which one or something? I don't know, anyway. I'm just raising a
So we
discussion
have the
that
power
I care
to
about.
vary the standard in original town if we so choose. Okay.
right.
That'll be easy.
I do have one more comment, and it can be dealt with the next time. On page 304, sort of that area of this, right at the top, it said, in general, the selection of pipe, it's on width and density and all that, pipe shall be left to the discretion of the PE in charge of design. I interpreted PE to be the engineer at the company we contract with. Is that what it means?
So we're done with streets.
The professional engineer, we have an engineer when we do a
Yeah,
project.
an engineer on staff.
When, like the town center, they have an engineer that's doing the design. So they're doing the design, we're reviewing it, and all the plans, we sign off on them. Right now, we've just reviewed all construction plans for the Phase 1 infrastructure. And we're going back and forth with their engineers saying, the standard, hey, we don't want that, we want to change it or whatever. And then so the engineer is actually doing the design. We don't want to be responsible for the design, but we want to make sure they follow our standards. And so they do the design, and then we sign off on that design.
I think we get a little loose with that in these last few pages of this, in where we're basically saying, you guys put forth to us what you want to do, and we'll look at it and see if we think it meets if it's good enough for
It
us.
has to meet our...
The point is, why, throughout the other 300 pages of this document, we said explicitly what our standards were. 6 inches, this, 40 inches. We talked about, diameters and whatever. Here, in these last few pages, and it almost is as if sort of fatigue set in at that point, and I was fatigued just reading through somebody else's work. I would rather have explicit standards set throughout all 319 pages of this document, rather than saying at the end, oh, you put forth what you want, and we'll comment whether or not it's good enough. So I would just ask, starting at about page 304, you look at that and see if you agree with me.
What section was that in?
Well, this was on page
Utilities.
304 in section,
It's C-4.2.
yeah, it's C-4.2.
Is that the utility standard?
Yeah.
Pipe, but it actually happened more times than this.
So, but we're done with, that's what I was trying to see.
Okay,
We're
well,
done with streets?
We're done with roadway standards.
I think so.
And then we have utility standards. If you
Yes.
have some time for about 15, 20 minutes from Jim, and that's where that particular
Okay.
thing comes up.
Okay, so thank you very much.
I'm Jim Widener, I'm the utilities superintendent, and I've gone through the utility standards. Oh, okay. And I found some changes that need to be made. So I guess I can start with trying to answer that first question that Trustee Pennington had with the PE involved. So the way I look at these standards, they were last amended in 2005, and I've been in consulting for about 20 years or so, so I know, how to design some of these things. And from what I've seen on some of these PDs and some of these construction drawings, it doesn't look like to me the PE's doing a lot of design. He sees our standards and he slaps them in there. So what I'm trying to do with that comment is to make him design it. So we have, the way I look at these is they're not really construction standards, they're more design standards. So we have a minimum requirement of what we want them to design around, which is what I tried to put in here. And if there's extenuating circumstances, then they need to, design around that. So in other words, we have, for sewer, we've upped that to a DR 26 or whatever that was, I can't quite remember, which makes it a thicker pipe than it used to be. That's our minimum right now. So if the design will allow that standard to be put in, then we'll put it in, and I will review that. If what they're doing requires a beefier pipe, then they're going to have to give us a beefier pipe. So what I want to see from the professional engineer that is designing this is that he actually shows me the calculations and says, okay, your DR 26 is going to be fine for your sewer. He's going to have to prove that to me. So if it doesn't, then we'll beef it up. Then he's going to have to show me some design calculations. So what? Because there's DR, 20, 25, it gets thicker and thicker. So when he designs it, it'll come out with a, which is a diameter to ratio measure that he has to put in there. And if DR 26 works, then it works. That's our minimum standard. If it doesn't, he's going to have to beef it up. So that's where I was going with that comment. I didn't mean it to be a lazy comment.
So
No,
who else's standards do they have to meet, though? I mean, what forces them to design it instead of just meeting whatever
Well,
your
for one thing, they're
standard
the
is?
ones stamping it.
I'm sorry,
So
what?
They're the ones stamping it with their seal.
Okay.
So they're liable for,
Okay.
for any,
Thanks.
anything that happens to it. And, also, we get all these drawings and specifications, and we don't get any calculations. We don't, it'll work. It's your standard, it should work. Well, show me that it's going to work.
Thanks.
That's all I was shooting for in there.
And they're liable, when you say they are liable for how long?
I don't know how long they're liable for.
Is that 2 years after acceptance?
Exactly.
So what is the extenuating circumstances that we could put in here that would trigger how they design it or what makes them design something more beefier than what is in the...
You got to show me the calculation, yeah. They'll have to show me that they designed it instead of just following our standards. Because a lot of times on some of those drawings, I don't know if you've seen some of the construction drawings, but they say per SMD1, Appendix C or whatever, per SMD1, standard drawings.
And you're saying that that might not be adequate in certain circumstances,
Right.
and so they need to document that that's
Right.
reasonable
That
to
would be behind the
assume that.
scenes, yeah. So,
So how do they know when it's not going to work? I mean, how do...
they have to run through you have, the pressure of the soil, you have the bedding, which is what we'll get to. You have, the bedding actually can be more of a support than the actual pipe if they bed it properly. And that all has, calculations involved. I won't go into the details. I'm really not that expert on pipe design, but I know enough to know what I'm looking at to see if they actually did their due diligence on it. So, so there's a set of calculations they have to typically run through, and then that'll give you a pipe size, or a pipe thickness. And if they run through it and it doesn't come out to DR 26, whatever I'm asking for, comes out to DR 15, which is a much thicker pipe, then that's what they have to put in. So I'm trying to make them design it instead of just following our standards.
I'll speak up. I appreciate that you have been here 20 years.
No, I haven't been here 20
And you know what you're doing. But I'm just worried about continuity of this long project. I mean, you may retire before we're halfway through it. And so the question is, do we have as many great standards as possible written here in good hard code so we don't get caught by substandard design when you retire and the guy they replace you with is brand new, straight out of
And
college?
if he reads that note, if they're following that note, then he should see that he needs to see some design documents on.
Reads what note?
That note that was in question about the PE will take so long, I can't remember what it
Is
said.
that one I read about,
Yeah.
shall be left to the discretion of the PE?
In general, yeah.
In general, and then, let's see if you read on.
So my question really is are these the most rigorous standards we can have, and are they as all-inclusive as we can have to set a good basis?
Right.
I think the bottom line is, what we want to know is what triggers the PE to actually need to look for a different design than what is on here.
Well, he has to go through, if he's a good designer, he won't really, look at the standards that much. He'll design the pipe for himself, and then he has to check our design standards. So he might come back, our minimum is, for an example, let's go with this DR 26 thing. It used to be DR 35. So let's go through, and he designed it in DR 35 will work. Well, he can't do that because our minimum is DR 26. So then he'll put in DR 26. If he designs it and that's not thick enough, then he'll have to change it. So I'm trying, that's a good point. I don't know if this quite does that. But that's what I'm looking for, is something that'll make him actually, because a lot of, I know how a lot of these guys will just put in there that follow the standards.
Right.
Without looking at, what the soils are doing, what the bedding's going to do with the pipe. It all mates together. When the pipe goes in the bedding, it all has a certain strength. And if the bedding's not mated well with the pipe, then it's not going to work. And that's all part of the design process. Instead of just saying, oh, they've got standards, we'll put that in.
Well, frankly, I'm going to be a little cruder about it. I think the concern is that any of these subcontractors puts in the cheapest product possible, the cheapest way possible, and they walk after 2 years. So we want to make sure we've got stuff that's going to stand the test of time.
Okay. Yeah, and actually the standard that you guys had in here with the bedding and the, sewer pipe, the DR35, is actually a fine standard. It actually works pretty well if it's constructed properly, and from what I've seen around here, a lot of it didn't go in that way. So we're trying to up it from that anyway, so. Anyway, so. Okay, so it was less than, so this is just the general stuff. And when they say staff reviewed the standards and updated preparations for the town center, I've been sort of looking at that. And the red lines are provided in Microsoft Word, and we had J&T Consulting put together the red lines on the drawings. And so Appendix B is the service line standards, and then Appendix C is the local distribution and collection system standards. So they're just two different parts of the distribution system. And then what they call the standard details, I'm calling them utility design standards, because I think it gets a little bit misunderstood that they want to construct around some of these details that I'm putting in here. What I want them to do is design it around these details. I don't want for instance, I got a question the other day about restraining the pipe. That we had our standards that says how to restrain the pipe, which you guys never had before. So I put that in there, and the engineer told me, well, just follow the standards. And I said, well, I don't want the contractor to do that. I want you to do it. I want the design engineer to apply these standards and then have the contractor build it. So I'm trying to get the responsibility away from the contractor and onto the engineer that's doing the design work. So I changed. So what I'm saying is that the standard details, I'm changing that to utility design standards instead of just standards. And a lot of the stuff is just outdated compared to what's going on at AWWA right now. So you'll see a lot of just minor updates. And then the water meters, there were some models in there that were never really made. And so I met with some of the water meter, the census people, and got their updated model numbers on those meters. And we also tried to get I put in a transmitter for getting the meters on the internet, if we ever want to go that way. So we'll have a standard for that, if that ever happens. And I'm still sort of working on that, trying to figure out which one we want to use. And the irrigation service lines, we just went through this the other day, and we're trying to get, what they do is they put in a certain pipe, and then when they go to repair it, we allow them to do PVC. Well, that doesn't mate with the pipe that's in there now. So I'm trying to update that so they have to use the same pipe diameters, and actually the bonding method that they use is different for different materials. I'm trying to standardize that bonding material too. And then the upgraded sewer service lines, thicker walled pipe was that DR number we've been talking about. And that was just a general, I was in a meeting where, I don't know if we want to require them to do Mylars for every construction set that they send, because we just go through and mark them up anyway, so. And they were still referring to Cherry Vale, so we changed that to Rocky Mountain. We want to try and make the distribution systems more consistent with, what's going on out there, which is, having more than one source of supply into a subdivision. Usually you'll have one source come in, and then it serves the subdivision. We're trying to bring it in from other areas as well. There's some of that here, but not all of it. So when you have a subdivision served from two locations, you don't have to shut down the whole place to fix a water line. So that's the idea of a loop system, and it also gives you more consistent water pressure. The ductile iron pipe was kind of antiquated as far as how they specified it, so we're just updating that. It's not a huge change. And then we're allowing C900 PVC pipe for water mains, 12 inches and smaller. And this is pretty much due to corrosive soils. I think Louisville actually requires this sort of pipe. Broomfield now requires it. And right now our standards won't let anything in but ductile iron, and I know that that's very corrosive.
So on that specific one, I noticed the quotation you give there doesn't refer to PVC pipe as a suggested
Well,
pipe.
plastic.
Doesn't know?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Good.
and they refer to
Good.
plastic pipe, that's what they mean. It's PVC or C900.
Okay.
C900 is just a pressure class rating. And again, that's, it's going to be based on, if the design is.
Did we, had we ourselves come to this conclusion based on how our systems have aged?
I believe so. I know that Ed out in the field will replace, ductile iron pipe with plastic pipe with C900 pipe, because it'll just, if you don't protect it properly, which is very labor intensive with the corrosion protection that you have to put on these pipes. So everybody uses it now, so it's pretty standard, so. And then a lot of the problem is once you bury plastic pipe, you can't find it because it doesn't give off a signal. So we're going to have tracer wire put in there with it so you can locate it. It's just it's a wire, so they can pick it up on their, metal detectors. And then also, in the current standards, we have, we allow ductile iron pipe, especially when you get into larger sizes. You may want to shy away from plastic pipe. So we do allow ductile iron pipe, but they don't have any standards in there for protecting it right now. So we're going to make that, I've added a lot of details for that, and we're working on that, trying to get those. I'm not really an expert on that, but I've got some people helping me on that. And then the added requirement for valve locations, I just go by what I hear out in the field, and a lot of the complaints are is there's not enough valves out there, because they have to go a long ways, 1,000 feet in some cases, to get to a valve, which leaves a lot of people without service. So we're requiring, I think I said, I can't remember what I put in there, but I think Denver Water usually says no more than 15 customers out of service, have valves placed, so no more than 15 customers will be out of service with a shutdown or a maintenance. So we're doing that. And
Are there any advanced ways for leak detection or things like that along the way? Not cameras, but something,
Yeah, I suppose there would be. I could look into that. I'm not an expert on that.
Just something to think about.
Yeah. So let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of standards for Denver Water, and so I'm just trying to update the standards we have here to what they're using, and then be a little more detailed than what we're asking for. I had a general note sheet. We didn't have a general note sheet in front of all these pipe requirements that we have, so I added that. And we did provide a drawing for residential fire protection systems, and I was just kind of copying what Denver Water was using and did a few modifications to it, but I'm sure there'll be questions on that one.
We had a long discussion on that being passed.
And then the trench detail for the sewer mains, we're going to start requiring a different type of fill, because they're putting in this squeegee, this kind of flowing fill that, and I don't even know if they were putting that in, to tell you the truth, which still isn't bad, but I don't know if it was being done. And we're going to make the trench a little bit wider, so you get a little more of the fill in than the actual dirt. And so we're just trying to protect against the clay soils.
If you remember El Dorado, the way all the trench failed because we didn't have a standard like this.
Yeah, the standard's not bad. I just don't know if they enforced it. So, and the fill that we will be requiring is a little more structurally sound. So it won't just be the pipe we're depending on. So that'll help. And then there's different ways to restrain the pipe joints. which I didn't see anything on that in the standard, so that's an added one. And then cathodic protection for the ductile iron pipe. So I guess that's it.
So I think our goals are the same. We want good standards, and so we'll come back with our geotech to provide, make sure we have the best standards possible for.
Do we contract out to a geotech, or do we have one on staff?
No, we have a geotech firm that we've been using on our street projects, and so he's the one who helped us, look at the problems of expansive soils and pavement design and all that. And he works, in a number of other communities with expansive soils. So we really relied on him to help.
And when's he going to be here?
We can try to get him for our next meeting. And April 14th, we can postpone that if you are not, is that what it means?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm not here. So please have the meeting.
So again, we wanted to beef up these standards before we have a lot of construction, so I know we have the same goals, and we'll try to, answer your questions, but, we want, I've dealt with all those crumbling roads, so I want to build them right the first time.
Any public comment? Oh.
We skipped
was our last. She was our last.
Is there a motion to approve this in the preliminary form?
Motion.
By trustee Williams, second.
Second.
Trustee Hanson, discussion. All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. We'll see this back on the 14th. Anything else to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.
How'd the wildlife advisory go last night? 9:30.
I just have one little comment. The next meeting is in 3 weeks, not 2.
Right.
Oh.
So enjoy
I'll
that
miss
week
you
off.
Alex will have plenty of time.
Right.
I did the
Fifth
wildlife
Monday in
report.
March.
That's
Yeah, I'll get back to you on that. I'm not sure. I have to find out, so.
So the 14th is the next meeting?
Yeah.
I know.
Thanks, Jim.
I was just going to ask the overarching.
Hopefully it won't be another boring discussion.
Guys go crazy on that stuff on the 14th. Just finish it.
You're a planning commission, guys.
So you're...
Hey,